Ladies and gentlemen, 50 feet of rope, 20 feet of steel chain, sealed bandages over the eyes, ears, mouth, and other natural orifices. Would anyone care to examine the restraints?
Of course not.
Colonel?
No, not necessary, thank you.
As you wish. Are you quite comfortable, my dear? Then I shall conceal you from view. And we can begin. Friends, let us pray.
The Madness of Colonel Warburton by Bert Coules, with Clive Merrison as Sherlock Holmes and Andrew Sachs as Dr. John Watson, and featuring Timothy West as Colonel Warburton, Eleanor Bron as Mrs. Bessemer, and Struan Roger as Mr. Bessemer. The Madness of Colonel Warburton.
Unmistakable. Yes. Right foot dragging. Yes, must be tired. Top of the stairs. Pause. Rest. And on. And now. Watson, welcome home, welcome home.
Oh, it's good to be back.
Now, you had a bad journey. The train was late. No, the train wasn't late. You had trouble getting a cab.
Oh, not now, old man.
Yes, trouble with the cab.
Holmes.
And then you had to wait in line behind three other men. Then you had to lift your own suitcase on board. So 3 other men, that's dreadful.
Holmes, show me your arm.
And then lecture me, Doctor. I'm in too good a mood.
You're far too good. Come here. Now.
I'm cutting down.
Are you indeed?
5% solution. It's better than 7, surely. I thought you'd be pleased.
So, my dear, how is everything?
Now, James, I've already told you, stop fussing. It couldn't be nicer.
There's plenty to occupy you, then.
Well, I'm never bored, if that's what you mean. There are so many people to talk to, and there's always someone who needs my help.
Now, don't you go squandering your time on every lame dog, Elizabeth. I know what you're like.
Oh, squandering my time? Don't be foolish, James.
Oh, right, I suppose that's not really an issue.
No, not really.
Pleased? Good God! Oh, what's the use? You've heard it all before.
Well, that's true enough. Just as you've heard my reasons.
Holmes, just because you don't have any work, you don't have to poison yourself with that filthy stuff.
Yes, I do. My work is my oxygen. Take it away and I suffocate. I'm only alive and my brain has something to do.
And you're seriously telling me that cocaine supplies that?
If only I could make you see the clarity, the insight, the understanding. Without it, I can't live in your empty, everyday world, Doctor. It's like a prison.
Wasn't there anything while I was away?
Nothing of any interest. Sorry, Watson.
Oh, here. I brought up the Post. There might be something.
Let's see. Nothing. Social invitation. Bill. Nothing.
Oh, what have you got?
Posted late last night in central London, but the writer lives out of town. A young man, well-educated, with firm opinions, and the matter's important but not urgent, because...
Because if it were, he would have sent a telegram.
Bravo, Watson, bravo.
Well?
Well, what?
It's something important.
Oh, yes.
Then it could be a case.
It certainly could.
Well, then, for the love of heaven, open it.
I can't do that.
Why not, for pity's sake?
It's addressed to you.
Oh.
Here.
Thank you. Oh, it's from Michael Warburton.
A friend?
Son of a friend. Well,
An acquaintance?
yeah, my old CO from the Berkshires, Colonel James Warburton. Retired now. This is about him.
Something's wrong.
So, everything's looking good then.
Good. Good doesn't begin to describe it, my dear. It's simply beautiful, James. Heaven is simply beautiful.
Yes. Yes, I think you could say that something's wrong.
So, Mr. Warburton.
Lieutenant Warburton, Mr. Holmes. I followed my father into the regiment.
Very good. Now the facts, if you please.
But surely you've seen my letter?
If you please.
Very well. My father is Colonel James Warburton. He's a soldier of great distinction, a man of intelligence and honour, and the holder of the Victoria Cross. He is also absolutely convinced that his late wife, my mother, is communicating with him from beyond the grave.
A man's beliefs are his own affair, surely.
Not if they affect the lives of other people, Mr. Holmes. On the advice of my dead mother,
Go on, Lieutenant.
On the advice of my dead mother, gentlemen, the old man's planning to give away everything he owns.
To the regiment? Or to some charity?
No, Doctor, not to a charity. He's giving the whole lot to the couple who bring him the messages from his wife.
Of course, I'm sure it's her. I ought to know my own wife, man.
Yes, of course.
Besides, some of the things she says, no one else could possibly know them. Everyone here says the same thing.
Yes, I know. But even so, I mean, it goes against all reason.
You still have doubts, Sir Robert?
Mrs. Bessemer,
You still have doubts, but you were open-minded enough to come.
the Colonel here was very persuasive.
We meet again on Saturday, Sir Robert. Come with an open mind and a clear heart, and there could well be a message for you.
For me?
We all have friends in the land of mist, Sir Robert. Companions, colleagues, loved ones. Will you come?
Yes. Yes, I will.
Does your mother actually appear at these seances?
My mother is dead, sir.
Well, then, does someone purporting to be your mother appear?
No. As I understand it, there's just a voice in the darkness.
Who is the medium?
Her name is Mrs. Bessemer. It's her husband who runs things, that's all I know.
And you desire me to demonstrate to the Colonel that these Besmers are frauds and the message is fake?
Exactly so.
Do you have any proof?
Proof? I don't need proof. Good God, surely you're not suggesting that this business could be genuine.
I have no data. Until I do, I prefer to keep an open mind.
An open mind?
The scientific approach, it's my way.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Holmes.
Well, sir, it may be your way, but it isn't mine. Look, my father is besotted with the Besmers. He insists on singing their praises to anyone who'll listen. His old friends, my friends. Dr. Watson, you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I'm afraid I do. The Colonel is making himself a laughingstock.
Exactly.
And you with him?
I'll not deny it. But it's him I'm thinking of. His reputation, his good name. And beyond that, the honour of the regiment itself is at stake. I can't just stand by and let it happen.
I see.
So if you can't help me, Mr. Holmes, I'll find someone else to snap him out of this insanity.
Insanity? You think the Colonel's actually lost his mind?
I wish I did think that.
What do you mean?
If he were mad, certifiably mad, then he couldn't be held responsible for his actions.
And if there's no accountability, there's no shame, no disgrace.
Exactly.
The military mind. Fascinating. Ah,
What's the matter?
I believe we're about to experience a visitation of our own. Won't you come in, Colonel? It's a little unfriendly to converse across the room, though I understand you're accustomed to somewhat greater distances. I am Sherlock Holmes. You might recall my associate, Dr. Watson.
I know who you are. What has my son been telling you?
Father...
Be silent, sir. You've no idea what you're dealing with. Mr. Holmes, has my son actually engaged you professionally?
He's inquired after my services. I've given him no answer, as yet.
Excellent. Then we can consider the matter closed.
I think not.
I beg your pardon.
Lieutenant, I'll give you my decision in the morning.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes.
I'm not accustomed to being treated in this manner.
And now, good day to you both. Watson.
Yes, this way, please, gentlemen.
Dr. Watson, Mr. Holmes.
Father, you coming?
Colonel? Very well. Mr. Holmes, this affair has implications beyond your understanding. I suggest that you keep your meddling nose out of matters which do not concern you. Good day.
Well, well, well.
You were insufferably rude.
Yes, it's a useful technique sometimes. Well, what do you think?
Well, he's not mad. Just gullible.
And you've made up your mind on the case?
But Holmes, the dead don't return in order to offer financial advice.
Perhaps not. We'll see.
Yes, sir.
It's all right, Rose. I'll deal with this.
Of course, sir.
Can I help you?
Mr. Besma, is it?
Maybe. Who wants to know?
Collins, Jonathan Collins. Perhaps I have the wrong house.
Well, that depends, Mr. Collins.
Well, I was told that you can put me in touch with someone.
Who told you?
A client. I work at one of the city banks. Perhaps if I give you my card?
Thank you.
Small establishment, but select. Perhaps you've heard of us?
I have indeed. Please, come inside.
Thank you.
My wife is a wonderful woman, Mr. Collins. A wonderful woman who's been blessed with a wonderful gift.
Well, so I've been given to understand, yes.
Who is it you have in spirit?
Beg pardon?
Who is it who's passed through the veil? Your own wife, perhaps? A parent?
Oh, I see. It's my sister, sir. Beatrice, taken from me by illness.
Oh, it must have been a terrible blow.
Unendurable, Mr. Besma. I wasn't present at the passing, you see. She called out for me, but I wasn't there.
Oh, distressing.
She wanted to say something to me.
A message?
Well, I can only suppose so, but I wasn't there. It's eating me up, Mr. Besma. What was the message? What could it have been? I have to know. Can you help me? Tell me you can help me.
We can help you.
Huh?
This is my wife.
Have no more fear, Mr. Collins. You've come to the right place.
Well, what happened then?
It was all disappointingly down to earth. For a trifling donation of 40 guineas.
How much?
Yeah, I'm invited to the next séance. 8 for 8:30.
The medium is secured. We can begin. If you'll take your places.
Yes, of course.
There were 6 of us altogether, not including the Besmers.
Was the Colonel there?
Oh, yes.
Did he recognize you?
Please, Watson.
Oh, sorry.
Now, as you all know, we have 2 new members of the Circle with us tonight.
Yes.
Mr. Collins here has recently lost his sister to the spirit world.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. You're very kind.
And Mrs. Fryer grieves for her daughter.
Janie.
No, you mustn't grieve, Margaret. She's not taken from you. She's just moved on, that's all. You'll see.
Yes. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you all.
They come, as you all have come, in search of the great truth. Mr. Collins, Mrs. Fryer, friends, if you'll put your hands flat on the table.
Like this?
Yes, that's the way. Now, we all grasp the hands of the people next to us.
The circle of power.
Oh, yes, of course.
Holmes, this is the purest poppycock.
Is it?
Well, of course it is.
Now, for the benefit of our new friends, I must explain that even though she's isolated behind the curtain, Mrs. Besma is under our supervision at all times. The least movement will be felt in the control ropes tied to her wrists. Colonel, you have yours.
I have.
Mrs. Cole?
As safe as the Bank of England.
Very good, very good. Now, if we can all compose ourselves.
We all sat there with our hands touching. Mrs. Besma was out of sight, tied up behind her curtain. Then Besma reached out behind him and turned out the lamp. It was pitch black. Oh, my dear Lord.
It's all right, Mr. Collins. The power is upon her.
Mrs. Besma?
Don't be alarmed. This is perfectly natural.
Mummy? Mummy? Mummy?
Oh, dear darling, is it really you?
Of course it's me, Mummy. Janie, sugar cane.
Oh, I used to call her that. I used to...
No, it is all right. It's all right.
Talk to her, Mrs. Fry.
Oh, yes. Yes. Janie, darling, are you all right?
Of course I am.
Oh, thank God, thank God.
Amen.
I have to go now, Mummy.
Oh, no. No, you mustn't. Stay here with me.
I can't, Mummy. They won't let me.
What? Who won't let you? What do you mean?
I try to come again, Mummy, if they'll let me. Come every week. Come every week.
No, no. Something touched me. Something touched my face.
What? It was her spirit departing from the circle. You're very privileged to have felt it.
You're so lucky.
Now, let's compose ourselves, friends. I feel there's more to come.
Good evening, James.
Ah, my dear.
I have something for you.
What do you mean, Elizabeth? Something for me?
There's too much doubt in the world, James. Too many people have closed their minds to the truth.
People who should know better.
Yes. The power is strong tonight. Your belief makes it strong. Believe, James.
I do believe.
I bring you something for those with no faith. I bring you proof.
Elizabeth?
Don't break the circle. Stay where you are, all of you.
Oh, my God, look.
Dear God.
Heaven protect us.
Keep calm. Keep perfectly calm.
There was something in the center of the table. Something darker than the darkness. A shape.
Holmes, what are you saying?
It moved. It was growing. Stretching.
A trick?
It changed. It became a form.
Nobody move. It won't harm us.
No. No, she won't.
Oh, now, come on.
It was a figure, kneeling in the center of the table. There was something in her hand. She laid it in front of the Colonel, and then she was gone.
I'm going to put the light on.
Mrs. Bessemer, is she all right?
My dear. Wait.
What happened?
This happened.
What's it? What is that?
It's what she promised me. My proof. It's my wife's wedding ring. She was buried wearing it.
Well, Doctor?
What kind of human being robs a grave for profit?
You're convinced it was some sort of trick, then?
Of course it was a trick. You were in total darkness. They could have done more or less anything. Were there any other manifestations?
No, that was the grand finale.
Oh, Mr. Collins' sister didn't show up then?
No.
Oh, they hadn't had time to dig up enough details to make it convincing.
Yes, the same thought occurred to me.
Oh, so you're not completely on their side. Here.
Thank you. I'm not on any side, not yet.
I'm pleased to hear it. So, what will you tell the Colonel's son? Will you accept the case?
Oh, didn't I mention that? I already have. I'm going out. Don't wait up. Very well. Now. Well. Fascinating.
Oi, you!
Wasn't that just a touch drastic, burgling their house?
I didn't burgle it. I didn't get inside.
No, only because you were nearly caught by the police.
Oh, give me some credit, Watson. I'm more than a match for a tired constable with a nagging wife and lumbago. Besides, he wasn't the reason.
Then what was?
The reinforced glass, the triple locks on the windows, and the case-hardened bolts on the back door. How Mr. and Mrs. Bessemer value their security. What are they protecting, do you suppose? Their lives?
Or their secrets. There's been a development.
Something happened while I was out.
A message.
From our client?
From his father.
Oh, another warning for me to back off.
Actually, the message was for me.
Oh.
Yes, the Colonel wants to see me. Tomorrow.
Gentlemen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Your health, Colonel?
Frankly, Doctor, I'm sick and tired of hearing about my health. The Berkshires.
The Berkshires.
Thank you for coming. I wasn't too sure that you would.
Why did you want to see me, Colonel?
To ask you a question.
What question?
Do you believe that I'm mad?
No, I don't.
Then you think I'm deluded?
I think you may have fallen victim to some very clever tricksters.
But you've not actually made up your mind on the subject.
Well...
Good man. Now, listen, Watson. I have a proposition for you.
Splendid.
Oh, you think so?
Well, don't you? It means I don't have to risk the disguise again. You'll be there as a legitimate, invited guest. Couldn't be better. What's your objection?
Well, suppose the Besmers know who I am.
I'm sure they will. John H. Watson, the famous crime writer.
And biographer of a certain celebrated detective. If I walk into their house...
Why should they make the connection? You said the Colonel hasn't told them that I'm involved.
No, but even so...
You'll simply be there as a friend of one of the regulars and a possible convert. So why should they be suspicious?
I still don't like it.
Alerting the Besmers isn't what's worrying you, is it? What's really wrong?
Well, you've already said it. The Colonel's invited me because he thinks I'll be convinced. He wants me to sing their praises in the Strand magazine.
And you can't see that happening?
Well, of course I can't. If I go, it'll be a betrayal of trust. I can't justify it.
I've been making some inquiries of my own. A little discreet investigation into the other sitters.
Oh, what were you looking for?
Oh, discharged servants, garrulous neighbours, relatives, given to gossip, any possible source for the Besmers' private knowledge.
And?
And I found nothing. I need more inside information. Watson?
Open your hearts. Open your hearts and open your minds, and they will appear.
John. John. Can you hear me? John.
My God.
John, aren't you there? Speak to me, please.
Who is it?
Oh, John, have you forgotten me so soon? It's Mary. It's your wife.
The Besmers are crooks. I want them stopped.
You have proof?
In all the years we've worked together...
Tell me what's happened.
They presented me with Mary. They had the damnable gall to conjure up my wife like some 10th-rate music hall act.
You saw her?
I saw nothing. I heard a lot of platitudes about love and faithfulness and heaven, and I felt... Well, never mind what I felt. And don't you dare ask me if it could have been real. I swear to you, on everything I hold dear, my Mary was not in that room. You believe me?
I believe you. Beyond your first name and your wife's, were there any other private details?
No, none.
Nothing they couldn't have discovered for themselves, then. Your names, even the very fact that you had a wife who died young, it's all a matter of public record.
Yes, but what about the other sitters? I heard things no one else could possibly have known. They all said it. It's their main reason for believing. So the Besmers must be getting private information from somewhere.
There is another possibility.
There is?
Think about the atmosphere, the build-up, the expectation, the darkness, the tension. You must have felt it.
Oh, yes, I did.
And think about the others, the look in their eyes, the hunger, the need for reassurance.
You're saying they're more than halfway convinced, even before the seance starts?
And so they read more into the messages than is actually there, exactly.
Yes, that makes sense. It would help with the voices, too. They want them to be real.
And the result is instant faith.
Instant riches, too, at 40 guineas a time. But I still don't know...
What's troubling you?
The ring. How did they do the ring?
Ah, yes. The ring.
Here we are, gentlemen. The Warburton Vault. It's been in the family for more than 10 generations.
And the late Elizabeth Warburton's buried here.
And has been these 13 years.
How many people have a key to these gates?
Only the family.
So it wouldn't be possible to go inside the vault?
I'm afraid it's out of the question.
Ah.
I'm sorry your journey's been wasted.
Oh, my dear Sexton, it's been nothing of the sort. Neither the ground nor the locks have been disturbed in a very long time. Capital.
The ring was a fake, then? A duplicate?
Evidently.
That must have involved a lot of work. Discovering the style, having it made, making sure it looked old and worn.
Our friends are thorough. Ah, I think we've arrived. Time for us to divide our forces.
If you come to see my son, Mr. Holmes, you should have sent word first. It would have saved you a journey.
The lieutenant is not here, Colonel.
He's at a regimental dinner in London.
Well, perhaps you'd be interested to hear of my progress.
I would not. What my son chooses to do is his affair. I'll have no part in it. Since I know that the Besmers are genuine, why should I be interested in your futile attempts to prove otherwise?
Why, indeed. Good day to you, Colonel.
Mr. Holmes.
Colonel?
Some truths are the better for not being dragged into the cold light of day. I ask you to remember that.
Colonel. What did you see on your walk around the gardens? Describe the house.
Well, only the central part is occupied. The rest seemed to be empty. Wasn't in too good a state, actually.
Any signs of repair work?
No, none at all. Not recently. What about indoors?
The same. Fascinating, don't you think? The servants were interesting, too.
Oh, you spoke to them?
I counted them. Tell Mrs. Hudson you'll be dining alone tonight. I have work to do. Ah, Watson.
Oh, you missed an excellent dinner.
Look at this.
Oh, what is it?
A copy of the Colonel's will. His first will before the recent changes in favour of the Besmers.
How did you get hold of this?
Well, it was simple enough to find out the name of the Colonel's solicitor. I went round to his office where
At this time of night? Holmes?
Where I discovered him working late. He was delighted to see me, happy to reminisce about the time I saved one of his clients from the gallows, only too pleased to do me a small favour in return.
Oh, sorry.
You know, you can be far too suspicious sometimes. I didn't need these at all.
No.
Now, read that.
Let me see. Well, it's unusual, but is it significant?
I think it's extremely significant.
You do? Why?
Get your hat. I'll explain on the way. Good evening, Lieutenant Warburton. My apologies for interrupting your dinner.
Oh, good Lord, man, never mind that. What have you found out?
I believe I can prove to the Colonel that he's being deceived.
You believe? Is your proof good enough to convince him or not?
That's hard to say. His conviction is very deep-seated. It's based on something far stronger than simply the facts.
But then that's exactly what you're counting on, isn't it?
What?
You don't want me to disabuse your father. You never wanted it. That's not why you engaged me.
What are you talking about?
You had to be seen to be taking action.
How would it have looked to the regiment if you just stood by and let your father give away his entire estate?
Are you making some sort of accusation?
It would have looked suspicious in the extreme. And so you came to me and engaged me to uncover the very fraud that you yourself were perpetrating.
Oh, this is outrageous.
The Colonel's house was the vital clue.
The house? What about the house?
Your father's will. His old will was quite specific. You were to
How the devil do you know what was in my father's will?
Knowing things is my business. You were to inherit the house and the land on condition that you never sell them.
Of course I wouldn't sell them. That house has been in our family for generations.
And now it's all but derelict. It would take a fortune to restore it, leaving you with nothing. You could say goodbye to your high life.
You're saying I cooked up this whole business just to get rid of the house?
You fed private information to the Besmers. You supplied the duplicate wedding ring. You did everything in your power to make the seances convincing.
I've never set eyes on the Besmers.
What was your arrangement with them? Hmm? What was your cut going to be when they sold the estate? What price did you put on betraying your father?
By God, sir! All right, that's enough. I've listened to you, now you can listen to me. There's not one single shred of truth in anything you've said. The thought that I would do that to my father. I have more cause to be grateful to my father than you can ever know. If you don't believe me, then let's go now. Right now to these Besmers and see if they'll recognize me. And while we're there, I'll beat the truth out of them. Oh, I should have done that from the start. Well, are we going?
No. It isn't necessary. Lieutenant, you have my profound apologies.
What the devil was that all about?
I was wrong.
Well, I realise that much. But what's changed your mind?
Weren't you listening to him?
Well, of course I was. Oh, but you must have heard more than I did. What was it?
It's not important. The question now is, what do we do next?
Do we have to start all over again?
Of course not. I've solved the case.
You have?
Well, to be strictly accurate, Lieutenant Warburton solved it for me. But what now? Watson.
Oh, I know that tone. You need my help, but you're not sure if I'll go along with it.
Am I really that transparent?
Only to me. What is it? Another burglary?
I'm afraid it's something rather more upsetting.
You want me to go to another one of those damned seances?
That's part of it.
Part of it. Are you sure this time?
Quite sure.
You can definitely put a stop to the Besmers?
Yes, I can.
Right. What do you need me to do?
Are you comfortable, my dear? Excellent. Now, if we could take our seats.
Yes, this is very good of you, Mr. Besmer.
The Colonel is one of our greatest champions. Any friend of his...
The other night, when Mary came through, it was just overwhelming.
Same for me first time.
But with all those others there, strangers, I mean, I just couldn't... You understand?
Oh, there's no need to explain, Doctor. It's an intensely personal experience. We understand completely.
No, it's really very good of you.
You're quite sure you want me here, Watson? I'd be perfectly happy to go, wait outside or whatever.
Oh, no, Colonel, no. You're used to all this. I'm not. I'd be grateful if you stay.
Now, gentlemen, you have the ropes securely.
Perfectly.
Doctor?
Yes.
And you're quite satisfied with the restraints?
I'd have been perfectly content to forego all this, Mr. Besmer.
No. That would never do. You must be sure that whatever happens, my wife is not directly responsible. Now, if you're both ready...
Ready.
Ready.
Excellent. Then I'll turn out the lamp. And if we link our free hands, then the circle is complete. Free your minds, open your hearts, and the spirits will come. They will come.
John. John. Are you there?
Answer her, Doctor.
Call her to you.
John.
Mary?
Oh, John. It's so good to talk to you. I've missed you so much.
Oh, Mary. Is it really you?
Oh, it is. Oh, my dearest love.
It seems so fantastic.
Always believe, John. It's your belief that makes it possible. You do believe.
I want to. I want to so much.
I can help you believe.
How?
The power is strong tonight. Your faith can make it stronger.
What's going to happen?
Don't question it, Watson. Just do as she asks.
All right. I will.
Compose your mind. Empty your heart of all doubt and pain. Call to her.
Mary. Mary.
What happened?
Someone touched my shoulder. I felt it.
Don't break the circle. Can you still feel our hands?
Yes. Oh, my God. It happened again.
She's trying to materialize. Are you still holding the ropes?
Yes, yes. And again.
John, stay calm. Believe. Believe.
I believe.
Release your hands, my love. Come to me.
Where?
Beside you. Here. Can you feel my touch?
Yes. Yes.
Then hold me. Hold me as you used to.
Yes.
Now kiss me, John. Kiss me, my love.
I don't think so, thank you.
Now, what's going on?
Everyone stay calm.
Let me free.
Including you, please, madam.
You're breaking my arm.
No, I'm not, but you'll break it yourself if you don't stop struggling.
All right. All right.
That's better. I've got her, Holmes.
You underestimate yourself, Doctor.
Oh, what?
What you've got is all three of them. That's better. Magnesium flares have their uses, but they're hard on the eyes.
You're trespassing. You broke in like a common thief.
I'll be sure to mention it to the police when they arrive. Well, well, quite a haul. 2 confidence tricksters and their accomplice.
If this is your idea of a joke, sir...
There's no point in pretending, Colonel. I know too much.
So, this whole evening was just a charade.
Colonel, I'm sorry. It was the only way.
You've made a big mistake, the pair of you. You're finished, Warburton. Now it'll all come out, your sordid little secret.
We'll ruin you and your worthless son.
I don't think so.
No!
Give me the gun, Colonel.
Keep your distance, Holmes.
Colonel.
You too, Doctor. And you can spare me the pitying look. They were vermin. If you know everything, you know that.
I never said I knew everything.
Then be good enough to tell me exactly what you do know.
I know that the Besmers were no more in touch with the next world than I am. And I know how they made your messages and your ring so impressively accurate. Their knowledge came from an impeccable source. You.
Go on.
We also suspect that you've been feeding the Besmers information on your various friends before you persuaded them to come to the seances.
And that you gave a helping hand in the dark by releasing your control on the medium. Are we right?
Quite right. And do you know why?
Because the Besmers were blackmailing you.
I never realized what a relief it would be to have it known. I almost feel I should thank you.
Somehow they discovered the secret you've worked for so long to keep hidden. The secret you've spent a fortune to conceal.
You really do know everything, then?
No. We know that this secret concerns your son. Beyond that, we know nothing.
My son... It was a foolish indiscretion many years ago. He's repented it ever since.
And you've successfully kept it from the eyes and the ears of the world.
Not just the world, Mr. Holmes. The regiment. Michael has a glorious career in front of him. If the news had become known, he would have been finished. And the regiment itself, it would have been tainted.
And the Besmers threatened you with exactly that.
In return for their silence, I had to go along with their preposterous lies. I had to convince friends, valued friends, of the wonder of it all. And, to my lasting shame, I had to profane the memory of my wife for the sake of their play acting.
Eventually, you ran out of friends to introduce. The Besmers saw your usefulness coming to an end.
And they demanded my very home, a final payment.
And you gave it, at the cost of your own reputation.
What was that to me? Do you have a son, Mr. Holmes?
No.
Oh. Well, perhaps if you had, you would understand. Look at this scene. Not exactly the glory of the battlefield. Eh, Watson?
No, Colonel.
No. Damaging to the regiment.
I'm afraid so.
Unless, of course, it was the work of a lunatic.
Colonel?
Someone not responsible for his actions. Then the only blame would be on him. Don't you agree?
Colonel, we know perfectly well that you're in your right mind.
I take the liberty of disagreeing with you, sir. And I venture that this will prove me correct, for the Berkshires and for my son!
Was it difficult?
What?
Convincing the police that the Colonel was insane.
Scotland Yard brain runs on predictable tracks. No gentleman in his right mind would kill twice and then put a pistol to his own head in front of witnesses. Therefore, he was not in his right mind, exactly as your Colonel intended.
Do you suppose he planned to shoot them anyway, even if we hadn't exposed the whole thing?
Why else would he have taken the gun? They'd driven him to his limit.
Will it have to come out? The blackmail, the family secret?
I don't see why it should.
Thank you.
Some truths are the better for not being dragged into the cold light of day.
Who said that?
A good man of my acquaintance.
Will you tell me something?
What?
Well, two things, actually. How did she get out of those ropes and chains?
It's a question of accumulated slack.
Accumulated slack?
The longer the rope, the easier to slip it off. The chain's the same. Actually, the hardest thing is stopping it falling off before you're ready.
You almost sound as though you're speaking from experience.
What's the second thing?
What was it Michael Warburton said that put you onto the solution?
Oh, that. I have more cause to be grateful to my father than you can ever know.
And that gave you the whole story?
Well, let's say it put all the other pieces into place. I'd considered that the Colonel might have been cooperating with the Besmers, but I dismissed it. Why should he? It never occurred to me that he might have been protecting his son.
Until that moment?
Exactly.
Then it's a good thing that you did provoke him. I doubt he'd have said it otherwise.
It's true enough. Will you tell me something?
Of course, if I can.
Do you understand?
I'm sorry?
Perhaps if you had a son, you would understand. Do you?
Don't you?
Not yet. Good night, Watson.
Good night.
In The Madness of Colonel Warburton, Sherlock Holmes was played by Clive Merrison and Dr. John Watson by Andrew Sachs. Colonel Warburton was played by Timothy West, Mrs. Besmer by Eleanor Bron, Mr. Besmer by Struan Roger, Michael Warburton by Jamie Newell, Sir Robert by David Bannerman, and Mrs. Fryer by Claire Corbett. Other parts were played by members of the cast. The violinist was Leonard Friedman. The Madness of Colonel Warburton was written by Bert Coules, from a reference in the short story The Engineer's Thumb by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The director was Patrick Rayner.
The General! Sergeant!
Reynolds, sir!
General!
What is going on here?
Orders of the court, sir. The prisoner was found guilty. Conspiracy against the government by sending a false and misleading dispatch containing forged orders.
The court has been misinformed. That dispatch was never sent!
Thank the Lord! So Captain Thorne is a free man?
Captain Thorne.
General.
Or whatever your name may be. The President has been fully informed, and I need not say that we look on you as a cursed, dangerous character.
Ha!
You will be held as a prisoner of war!
So,
My dear Edith, what is it? Love and goodbye?
No, only the first. Love. Love every day, every hour, every minute. Until we meet again.
Until we meet again!
Oh.
The Star of the Adelphi by Bert Coules, with Clive Merrison as Sherlock Holmes and Andrew Sachs as Dr. John Watson, and featuring John Bett as Richard Arthur Prince. The Star of the Adelphi.
Weather's certainly turned.
Yes. Does it affect business?
Now, you know I don't worry about that kind of thing, Johnny. I, sir, am an artiste. Ready?
Looking forward to it. Lead on, artiste.
Oh, just a minute.
What? I thought you were in a hurry.
This is important.
Mr. Terrace! Mr. Terrace, it is you, isn't it?
Madam, I cannot deny it.
This is such a thrill, a privilege. George, it is him. I was right. I told you I was right.
Good evening, Mr. Terrace.
Good evening to you, sir.
My wife is a great admirer of yours, sir. Oh, as am I.
You're very kind. Mr. and Mrs.
Charlton, sir. Mr. and Mrs. Charlton.
Emily.
Mrs. Emily Charlton. It has a theatrical ring to it.
Oh, Mr. Terrace.
Come onto the stage with me, Emily, and I'll make you the most famous name in England.
Mrs. Charlton works in a dress shop.
Shut up, George.
And I'm sure she does so most charmingly. Now, I believe I have... yes. Perhaps I might present this to your lovely wife, Mr. Charlton, if I'm not being too bold.
Oh, of course you're not. May I look? Oh, that's you in the Silver Falls.
Eric Normanhurst, one of my favourite roles.
We saw it 6 times, didn't we, George?
We did, yes.
Then, let me see. Yes. To the lovely Mrs. Emily Charlton, one of my most devoted admirers.
Oh, Mr. Terrace.
And now, good evening to you both.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And thank you, thank you.
Come on, Emily.
Thank you.
Come on, Johnny. Step out, or I shall be late.
Well, I couldn't do it. Same thing, day in, day out. I'd go mad.
But it's not the same, Johnny. Never is.
Mad inside a week. Hello. Looks like another one.
Where? Oh, yes. Excuse me.
Oh, you go ahead. I'll keep out of your light.
You know more about my business than you let on, you old fraud.
Go on. Don't keep your public waiting.
Won't take long. Good evening.
What the devil?
Good God.
Something interesting.
Oh, something amazing. William Terrace has been murdered.
By a theatre critic.
That is in extremely bad taste. By an unknown assassin, it says here.
Any useful details?
Well, let's see. Stabbed repeatedly outside the stage door of the Adelphi Theatre, where he was currently taking the leading role in The Secret Service, a successful...
If melodramatic, no doubt.
...and popular stage play by the noted American author Mr. William Gillette.
William? Can't say I've ever heard of him.
The attacker, whose features were largely masked by a low hat and a muffler, was seen to smile down at the lifeless corpse before walking slowly off into the night.
If it was seen in that much detail, the witness must have been close by. Why didn't he chase him?
Mr. Terrace's dinner companion, Mr. Jonathan Graves, retired surveyor...
Too old to chase him.
Perhaps he just wanted to stay by his friend.
Perhaps.
Mr. Jonathan Graves, retired surveyor, immediately raised the alarm. Police Constable number 272E, John Bragg... We understand that the detective department at Scotland Yard has been brought in and a speedy arrest is confidently expected.
Ha!
William Terrace. Good Lord.
Mr. Holmes, the police have achieved nothing.
Miss Millward, in my experience, that is not at all an unusual state of affairs.
To be fair, Miss Millward, they have very little to go on. The street was dark. The killer was muffled up.
Something must be done. That is why I have come to you, Mr. Holmes.
Your note said that you're acting on behalf of the dead man's family.
His professional family?
Ah, you don't represent Mr. Terrace's widow, then?
No. Amy Terrace is too overcome to make any decisions.
Of course.
I am here on my own behalf and that of the company at the Adelphi.
Where the late Mr. Terrace has been leading man for some years.
And where I was, privileged to be his leading lady. Mr. Holmes, this has been a devastating blow to all of us. Please say that you'll accept the case.
Mr. Holmes, I'm truly sorry, but I don't see that I can be of any help to you. I've told the police everything I can, and God knows that's little enough. I've been to Scotland Yard on 3 separate occasions.
Well, my methods are somewhat different from theirs, Mr. Graves, which is why I brought you here. And please show me exactly where you were standing when the attack took place.
Oh, well, I was standing here. We just walked up from Bedford Street.
Where exactly was the murderer standing?
To the left of the stage door.
This is not the stage door?
Not the main one, no. Oh. This is a private door. Only Will uses it.
I see.
To avoid the crowd, you understand.
Interesting.
It's the old royal entrance. The management gave Will the only key. Solid silver.
So, the attacker was standing... Watson, if you'd be so kind.
Oh, yes, of course. Where? Here?
Little more to the left. That's it.
And Terrace walked up to him from... here.
Correct.
How did he walk?
I don't understand.
Well, quickly, slowly, confidently, reluctantly?
Oh, I see. Not reluctantly. Will was always gracious when he was approached in the street.
Very good. Then he walked up to the man in a friendly, open manner.
Exactly.
Yes, and stopped, how far apart were they?
A little closer. No, that's too much. Yeah. There.
Almost directly between you and the killer. Now, how was Terrace standing? Relaxed or tense?
Relaxed.
His arms?
Really, Mr. Holmes, I can't be expected to remember every detail.
Did he carry his walking cane in his left or his right hand?
Oh, his left. How did you know that he carried a cane at all?
It was mentioned in the press reports. Very good, very good. His cane is in his left hand.
And his right hand?
Yes.
Yes, I do remember. As he walked up to the man, Will put his hand into his right coat pocket.
Like this?
Exactly. I have the scene exactly. I'm sorry, gentlemen.
How much more, Holmes?
Not much. Terrace cried out.
At least twice. Maybe 3 times. And then everything seemed to stop. It was the most extraordinary thing. And then he just sort of slipped down.
Like so?
Yes. Yes.
You're doing splendidly, Mr. Graves.
Terrace was down. The killer smiled at him.
Yes.
If his face was muffled, how do you know that he smiled?
The muffler must have slipped. Yes. Yes, it had slipped.
Excellent, excellent. Now, what else do you recall of the man's face?
Nothing. I'm truly sorry.
No matter. You've given me vital information.
I have?
Vital information.
I'm glad you were able to make him feel a bit better, poor soul.
I only told him the truth.
Well, I think I can see some of it. Oh, yes, thanks. Good health.
Health? Not at all bad. Go on.
Right. Well, first of all, the murderer was familiar with Terrace's habits.
Because?
Because he knew about the private entrance to the theatre.
What else?
Terrace probably knew the man.
If it was a man.
Holmes, I've seen the post-mortem report. 2 of the blows penetrated the sternum. That takes incredible force.
No, not incredible, merely considerable. Why did Terrace know his killer?
Because he walked up to him with no suspicions.
No, we have Graves' testimony that he always greeted admirers in the street.
Oh, that's true. So it's possible he didn't know him at all.
I don't give up so easily. He knew him all right.
How can you be so sure?
Well, think about the scene. 7:15 at night. Darkness. Just a feeble gas lamp over the door.
The man would have been in shadow.
Exactly. However open he was with his public, I doubt if Terrace would have happily walked right up to a dark and muffled figure lurking in a doorway, unless he had a good idea of who it was.
Well, that makes sense.
Oh, we can go further. Terrace not only knew him, he knew him well.
How so?
Precisely because he was in shadow, with his face hidden. Terrace must have recognised him from his stance or his clothes or something. We have Graves' word for it. The man didn't speak.
You're right. Yes, Graves explained something that had been puzzling me too.
What's that?
Why Terrace didn't make any attempt to defend himself. Now, usually in a frontal stabbing, there are defence wounds on the hands and forearms. In this case, there was nothing. But now we know that Terrace had his cane in his left hand.
And his right hand in his coat pocket, yeah. Fascinating.
The cottage. The mansion, more like.
Rewards of fame. Have you ever acted, Watson?
Good Lord, no.
Well, it's a fine profession if you're at the top.
And if you're not?
Let's see if the grieving widow will receive us.
Mr. Holmes?
Madam, this is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson.
My sincere condolences, Mrs. Terrace.
Thank you, sir. Forgive me, but you are Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the detective?
I am.
I'm sorry, but why are you here?
I've been engaged by your late husband's colleagues to investigate his murder.
By his colleagues?
The company of the Adelphi Theatre.
All of them, sir? Or was it perhaps one in particular?
It was.
Jessie Millward.
Presumably she informed you of her intention.
No, sir, she did not.
Do you object to our investigation, Mrs. Terrace?
If you desire it, I can tell Miss Millward that I'm relinquishing the case.
You may tell Miss Millward whatever you wish. Now, gentlemen, you must excuse me. I have to visit my daughter. I'll send in the maid with your hats.
Well,
quiet. What do we know about Mrs. Terrace?
Let's see. Here we are. Amy Terrace, née Fellows, actress, gave up promising career when she married. One daughter, Ellaline, unmarried, also an actress. The Terraces' marriage was famously successful and happy.
Yes, more play acting to judge from her reaction to our client's name.
Your hats and gloves, gentlemen.
Oh, thank you.
Vicky.
Thank
Sir?
you, Vicky.
Tell me, Vicky, where does Mrs. Terrace's daughter live?
In Camberwell, sir, but you won't find her there.
Where will I find her?
Where she's been for the past 6 weeks, poor woman. Charing Cross Hospital.
There's something quite eerie about an empty theatre.
Do you think so? Oh, I find the atmosphere invigorating.
Yes, what is that smell?
Size. They use it to stretch the canvas on the flats.
On the what?
Mr. Holmes? Dr. Watson?
Oh, Miss Millward.
Come on up. There are steps on the left.
Excellent acoustics. Oh, for a muse of fire that would ascend the brightest heaven of invention.
A kingdom for a stage, princess to act. I'm so sorry.
Oh, let me find you a chair.
No, I'm all right. Well, Mr. Holmes, have you come to report progress?
I have.
But that's excellent. What have you discovered?
I've discovered that you and the late William Terrace enjoyed a most intimate relationship.
I do not deny it.
I'm glad to hear it. Honesty is of infinitely more use to me than deception. Do you object to discussing the subject?
Not if it will help.
It could well do so.
Then ask me your questions.
Exactly how deep was the friendship?
We were in love. And we were lovers.
And your plans were?
William was going to divorce his wife, and we were to marry.
Mrs. Terrace knew this?
Yes, she did.
Had Terrace already left her?
No, he had not. It was all arranged, and then that... And then Seymour Hicks appeared on the scene.
Seymour Hicks, the actor?
Seymour Hicks has been hailed as the new William Terrace.
I believe that qualifies as dramatic irony, Mr. Holmes. But Hicks has another role in this sorry affair. One his adoring public don't know about.
What role is that?
Seymour Hicks seduced Will's daughter and made her pregnant.
When was this?
8 months ago. Oh, he did the honourable thing.
He married the girl.
In secret. Hicks didn't want his public to know. Dashing young actor, big following among the ladies, you understand?
Why is Terrace's daughter in hospital? Do you know?
A miscarriage. Lots of complications. Even if she recovers, the girl's career is over. Did you know she was an actress?
Yes. Did Terrace accept the marriage?
He had little choice.
How did Hicks feel about his father-in-law?
He was convinced that Will used his position in the profession to stop jobs coming his way.
Was he correct?
Of course not. Will wouldn't do a thing like that. But Hicks wouldn't listen to reason. He hated Will.
Enough to kill him?
I don't know. Perhaps. Anyway, the girl's illness. It brought Will and Amy closer. He wouldn't leave her while Ellaline was still so sick. But he promised me, once she was better, once she was back on her feet... Find out who did this, Mr. Holmes. My Will was the kindest, gentlest, most generous man who ever walked this earth. Find out who did this.
This is very interesting.
Hmm? What is it?
The programme for the Secret Service, the play at the Adelphi. There's a biography of Terrace.
Ah, the public face. What does it say?
Well, he had an amazing life. Sailor, tea planter, banker, wine merchant, all before he was 20.
And then he went on the stage.
Ah, yes, but he made no progress and he gave it up. And he came back to it after a couple of years. More success this time. Taken up by the Terry family.
Ah, intelligent move on his part. Get well in with the profession's leading dynasty.
Terrace was a star by 81. Acted with all the greats, and then invited to head the permanent company at the Adelphi. Well, even if it's half fiction, it's a fascinating story.
Ah, that's praise indeed, coming from you.
Oh, what next? Are we going to talk to Seymour Hicks?
I'm going to talk to Seymour Hicks. You're going to pursue a new line of inquiry.
Oh, what's that?
You really must learn to appreciate the value of minute pieces of information. We just learned something of great interest about the late Mr. Terrace.
We did?
Not from that programme.
What, from Jessie Millward?
Yes. My Will was the kindest, gentlest, most generous man who ever walked this earth. And in his profession, generosity would almost certainly have brought him into contact with one particular group of people.
Sit down, Dr. Watson.
Oh, yes, thank you.
The Actors' Benevolent Fund is always happy to greet a new patron.
Oh, I'm afraid that's not why I'm here.
Oh, then how can I help you?
It's about the late William Terrace.
God rest his soul. What a terrible business.
Yes, indeed.
What do you want to know?
I'm trying to build up a picture of him. I understand that he was a very generous man.
Well, it can't do any harm now, I suppose.
What do you mean, Mr. Cotson?
He'd have had my hide if I'd breathed a word of it while he was alive. Look, it's this way, Doctor. Some people in this business, they do their good deeds right enough, but they do them in the limelight, so to speak. You follow me?
No, I think so, yes.
Works wonders for the old public image. And fair's fair, the money's always welcome, whatever the motive behind the giving of it.
But Terrace wasn't like that?
Bless you, no. Put his hand in his pocket for anyone in the profession, Will would. But breathe a word of it outside, and he'd deny it like a shot. And it wasn't just the money, either. Just a minute. Yes, here we are. Take a look at this.
Thank you. This is to certify that I know the bearer of this letter, Richard Arthur Prince, actor, as a hard-working and deserving member of the profession, Will Terrace.
Prince was down on his luck. He brought us that, and we helped him out for a spell. Let's see. No. Ah! Here it is, yes. Regular payments starting January 96. Yes, right after the last committee meeting. Well, Terrace was always doing that sort of thing.
So, that much is confirmed, at least. How did you get on with Seymour Hicks?
I didn't. He's not been seen since the day following the murder.
Good Lord.
The daughter. Complications following the loss of a child. Will she be lucid?
Holmes, I will not have you browbeating a woman in her condition.
Then you'd better come with me, hadn't you? Well, can I see her?
No, you can't.
Damn.
Because she's not here.
Mr. Holmes, I thought I made it clear that I did not wish to be involved in your investigation.
I appreciate that, Mrs. Terrace. And if you'll answer one question for me, I leave this house and never return unless you ask me to do so.
What is the one question?
Where has your son-in-law taken his wife?
Oh, smell that air. Good for the soul, sea air.
I'll take your word for it.
Oh, come on, there are worse places than Margate.
I'll take your word for that, too. There, the Imperial Hotel.
Just what are you hoping to learn from her?
I'm not sure yet.
Her husband certainly had an excellent motive for killing Terrace.
I thought he had.
Is it really possible for one actor to affect another's career like that?
Certainly. The bigger the name, the greater the power.
But the daughter doesn't even know about her father's death. How can she be of any help? Holmes, you are not going to break the news to her. I forbid it.
Gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. Hicks will see you now. Please follow me.
Holmes, do you really think Hicks is our killer?
This whole case revolves around play acting, Doctor. Public faces, private truths. I'm simply trying to take a look behind the scenes. Mrs. Hicks, I apologize for disturbing your convalescence in this way.
That's all right, Mr. Holmes. Seymour will tell you that I'm already much stronger than I was.
Oh, I'm delighted to hear it.
How can we help you, Mr. Holmes?
Perhaps I should first speak to you in private, Mr. Hicks.
I keep no secrets from Ellaline. Not anymore.
Then you know, Mrs. Hicks?
About my poor father. Yes, Doctor, I know.
Are you looking into it, Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
I'm glad my mother-in-law went to you. Anything we can do, we shall.
Oh, yes.
My client is not Mrs. Terrace.
Then who is?
I was engaged by Miss Jessie Millwood.
Dr. Watson, it's time for my wife's medicine. Would you be so kind?
Well, of course.
The bottles are on the dresser. They're all marked with the doses. Mr. Holmes, a word with you in the other room, if you please. Now, Mr. Holmes, what exactly has that damn woman been telling you?
He denied all of it.
You mean he didn't hate Terrace at all?
He says not. Of course, you'd hardly expect him to admit it.
But what's he saying? Jessie Millwood is mistaken?
No, not mistaken. Malicious.
Well, why should she lie about such a thing?
To divert our attention away from the truth.
But she killed Terrace?
Watson, you can be horribly direct at times. There are at least 5 other reasons why she should want to put the blame onto Seymour Hicks. Plus, of course, there's the distinct possibility that Hicks himself is lying. You do any better with a daughter?
I was giving her medicine, not interrogating her.
You surely didn't let the opportunity slip.
No, I didn't. But I couldn't push things too far. She also harbours a strong dislike of Miss Millwood. I couldn't find out why.
Perhaps because she broke up her parents' marriage.
That could be. On the other hand, they are both actresses. It could simply be professional rivalry.
She was definitely concealing something.
How can you say that? You hardly spoke to her.
Well, surely you noticed where she was sitting.
Well, in an armchair, by the window.
Well, not simply by the window, with her back to the window, and therefore with her face in shadow and the sunlight in our eyes. She was anxious that we shouldn't be able to read her expression. Significant.
I'm afraid you're wrong.
What?
You're wrong. I can tell you exactly why she was sitting as she was. It had nothing to do with concealing her expression or hiding her emotions.
What then?
Holmes, she's been deathly ill. She's still far from well. We gave her hardly any notice that we wanted to see her.
So?
When I gave her the medicine, I noticed that she wasn't wearing any makeup.
Makeup?
No rouge, no powder. She sat with her back to the light so we couldn't see how pale she looked. That's all.
Women. How can you build on such quicksand? Everything hinges on the late Mr. Terrace's true relationships with those around him. Was he a loving husband or an adulterer? Did he take pains to block a colleague's career or go out of his way to support his fellow actor?
Well, we have Charles Cotson's word on that. Terrace was generous to a fault.
Never forget, we're dealing with people who dissemble for a living. Convincing performances sometimes take place off stage as well as on.
Well then, what impression did you get of Seymour Hicks? Did he hate his father-in-law?
He certainly hates someone.
Who?
Our client. Or perhaps he just wanted me to think that he hates her.
Oh, good God. Actors. What are you going to do about Jessie Millwood?
Nothing yet. First, I want to get another viewpoint on the dead man.
What viewpoint?
The opinion of someone he's helped rather than hindered.
No. Good old system never fails me. There you are, Mr. Holmes. Prince's card.
Thank you. Richard Arthur Prince, leading roles, Shakespearean tragedy, a speciality. Address... Interesting address for an out-of-work actor.
What does it say?
Adelphi Theatre, Strand, London. Was Prince a member of the Adelphi Company?
Bless you, no. Not in a million years. The real address is penciled on the back.
Richard Arthur Prince.
At your service, Mr.
Sherlock Holmes.
An honour, sir. And your companion is no doubt the prolific Dr. John Watson.
How do you do, Mr. Prince?
I do as best I can, sir. Come in, gentlemen. Come in.
Thank you.
Please take the chair, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson, I'm afraid all I can offer you is the bed. My other chair is being repaired.
Oh, the bed will be fine.
Now, may I offer you some tea?
Thank you, no.
No, thank you.
Oh, very well. How may I serve you, gentlemen?
We understand that you were acquainted with the late William Terrace.
I had that honour.
How well did you know him?
Well, perhaps these will answer your question. Just one moment. Now, Terrace. Ah, yes. Mr. Holmes?
Thank you.
What are those, Mr. Prince?
The record of our friendship. Please do examine them, Mr. Holmes. You see, I'm familiar with your methods. I believe that's the phrase, Doctor.
One of your loyal readers, Watson. Very interesting.
The jewel of my collection, sir. This box contains letters from some of the highest in the land, but none mean more to me than those you are holding.
The highest in the land?
The Duke of York, the Prime Minister, Miss Ellen Terry, Lord Backwater, the Secretary of War, the personal equerry to Her Royal Highness, Mr. Henry Irving.
You've corresponded with them all?
I have, and I have been privileged to receive their replies. See, here.
Oh, Balmoral. Her Imperial Majesty instructs me to thank you for your letter and your good wishes for her continued health. This is your hobby, Mr. Prince?
Rather more than that, sir.
Judging by these replies, most of your letters to Terrace were requests for money.
Yes, that was how our friendship started, I must admit it.
But it developed beyond that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. It did, Mr. Holmes.
So, you knew him well?
We were kindred spirits, you see. He told me once that he saw himself in me. He told me that once.
Did he have any enemies?
All men have enemies.
But not all men are murdered.
No.
Do you know of anyone who hated him enough to stab him to death in cold blood?
Will was a great star. Many people were jealous of his success.
We're looking for something more than that.
Well, there was one person.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. Mrs. Terrace refuses to see you.
Please give her this note.
Sir.
What did you put?
I now know the facts about Jessie Millwood.
So you've decided that Hicks was telling the truth?
I've decided nothing. I'm waiting for confirmation from Mrs. Terrace.
It was a bluff?
A bluff that worked. Good evening, Mrs. Terrace. Thank you for seeing me.
Do you know who killed my husband?
No, I do not.
Do you believe that you can find out?
If you will answer my questions.
Go on.
My client, Miss Jessie Millwood, told me that the late Mr. Terrace despised Seymour Hicks for ruining his daughter's career. That Hicks, in turn, hated him for blocking his progress in the profession. And that Terrace was about to leave you, his wife, in order to marry her.
I scarcely know where to begin.
Then I shall help you. I suspect that it's a tissue of lies from beginning to end.
The woman lives in a fantasy world.
Indeed. But perhaps not all of the time.
She certainly seems to harbour some sort of permanent delusion concerning poor Will.
He wasn't in love with her?
Oh, there was love, Dr. Watson. But it was totally one-sided. The woman was obsessed with him. She would make up any story she could at the drop of a hat to bolster her pathetic illusions.
How did Terrace react to her?
It was difficult for him. He had to work with her, appear with her on stage all the time. He tried to make her see the truth of it. But she just refused, point blank.
She wouldn't believe him?
Would not. Or could not.
When was this?
Months ago. Will made his position perfectly clear, and she turned against all of us and started spreading her disgusting lies.
Terrace didn't blame Hicks for ending your daughter's career.
Well, he knew perfectly well that Ella was planning to leave the stage anyway.
I thought she had a promising future.
Do you have any idea how hard it is living in the shadow of a famous father?
I have heard something of the sort.
When Ella fell pregnant, well, it was wonderful. It was what we all wanted.
But the disgrace...
What disgrace?
What disgrace? I know your world is free and easy, but surely...
Wait, Watson. Mrs. Terrace, how long has your daughter been married?
Nearly 2 years. Why? What did that woman tell you?
It's not important.
What about the other accusations? Terrace put obstacles in his son-in-law's path, and he hated Terrace for it.
It's simply not true. Dr. Watson, Mr. Holmes, I only know of one person in the whole world who hated William Terrace. And that person was Miss Jessie Millward.
How much do you know?
We know everything.
He did love me, you know. He did love me once.
No. He loved his wife and his daughter.
He told you so, repeatedly, and you refused to believe him. Do you deny it?
Yes, I deny it.
Miss Millward.
I deny it, don't you understand? I did believe him. I did. I knew he didn't love me.
And what did you do?
I wanted to hurt him and his sanctimonious family. I wanted to hurt him so badly, and then...
And then he was brutally stabbed to death and his family plunged into grief. Exactly what you wanted.
When I heard, I wasn't glad. Not really. I didn't know how to react. Not at first. I'm still not sure. Isn't that ridiculous?
Are you saying you didn't kill him?
No, Doctor. It wasn't me. How could it be me? I loved him. Even when I hated him, I still loved him.
So she came to you purely to implicate Seymour Hicks?
Twisting the knife in the wound. Any member of the family would have sufficed. Hicks was simply the most convenient.
Such hatred. You know, the killer was completely muffled and didn't speak. It could have been her.
Not here. Let's go somewhere quieter. So, you didn't believe her denial?
She is an actress, and a good one.
As you so perceptively remarked, on this case we're surrounded by actors.
Yes.
And unfortunately, so was Terrace, both in his public and his private life. I've remarked to you that singularity can be a vital clue.
You have?
Regrettably, in this case, we're talking of a man with dozens of friends, hundreds of colleagues, and thousands of admirers.
Is there really nothing else to go on?
Well, if there is, I can't see it. Actors. Public faces, private truths. I've often thought the greatest criminals would have had excellent careers on the stage.
You have?
Think of the late, lamented Professor Moriarty, hiding behind his respectable public face. Acting of the highest order.
I've never thought of it like that.
Shakespeare had the right of it. Then he usually did. All the world's a stage.
And all the men and women merely players.
They have their exits and their entrances, and one man...
Holmes?
Watson, I've been a fool.
You know who did it?
I have a suspicion.
Well?
Not yet. First, I need one vital piece of information.
You want to know what?
I want to know how frequently your committee meets and when.
For God's sake, come to the office in the morning.
Now, Mr. Cotson, if you please.
The third Thursday of every month. Now, if that's all...
That is not all. I have two more questions. No one's home.
No. Wait, if you're right...
I'm quite certain of it.
Well, then it's possible... Holmes, we have to get this door open.
It seems you were wrong. No remorseful suicide's corpse to excite your readers.
Thank God for it. But where do we look now?
At the temple of the fallen idol.
It's hard to credit.
It's entirely logical. You heard what Cotson said.
Well, yes, but even so...
Believe it, Doctor. It's time to ring down the curtain. Here we are, the number 1 dressing room. Good evening.
Gentlemen, I don't usually receive visitors during a performance.
Then we are honoured.
How are you feeling, Mr. Prince?
Have you discovered who killed poor Will, Mr. Holmes?
I have.
Then this is the climactic scene where you unveil your flawless chain of deductions. It's like one of your stories come to life, Doctor. Gentlemen, do sit down, please. You'll observe there's more than one chair here. Please, do sit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's better. Mr. Holmes, the audience is waiting. I believe the stage is yours.
All the world's a stage.
And all the men and women merely play.
They have their exits and their entrances, and one man, in his time, plays many parts. One man, in his time. That was the vital clue I had overlooked.
I thought you never overlooked a clue.
Why was Terrace killed then? Why on that particular day? Why at that particular time? What happened to trigger the murder? What happened on the 16th of December, Mr. Prince? What happened on the 3rd Thursday in the month?
Nothing. Nothing happened.
It was the day of the Benevolent Fund Committee meeting. The day they stopped your payments.
You went to the secretary. You wanted to know why.
I had letters. Letters from him.
And still, they turned you down.
It was a split vote. 50-50, Cotson said.
And so it was the chairman's decision.
Yes.
You were angry.
Yes.
How dare someone treat you like this?
Yes.
The friend of the great William Terrace?
Yes.
Dare you ask Cotson, who was it? Who was the chairman?
Yes.
And he told you.
Yes.
And that evening, you went to where you knew he'd be, and you killed him.
How could he do that to me? I loved him, and he loved me. He was training me, did you know that? He was teaching me everything he knew. First, we were going to star together. Then he was going to retire, and I was going to take his place. He said so. I loved him. How could he betray me?
Are you confessing to the murder?
Come on to the stage with me, my boy, and I'll make you the most famous actor in England. I could have been Horatio to his Hamlet, Mercutio to his Romeo.
Brutus to his Caesar?
Yes!
No. You stabbed him 3 times. You smiled down at him, and then you walked away.
No. How could I have killed him? He was everything to me.
Until that day?
But I forgave him. He must have had a reason. A good reason. So I forgave him. I didn't need to kill him.
Yes, you forgave him, but only afterwards. And then you made yourself believe that it had never happened.
You did it very well. You were totally convincing.
I was?
Admit it, Prince. Accept it. It will go better for you if you do.
Mr. Holmes, you are quite wrong. I did not kill Will Terrace. I had no reason to.
I'm afraid you're absolutely correct.
What? What do you mean?
I mean that you killed him for nothing.
I don't understand. Explain yourself.
Prince, we've just been talking to Charles Cotson. We asked him who was in the chair at that meeting, just as you did.
And he gave us the same answer he gave you.
He told us he couldn't remember.
What?
He knew it was one of 2 men.
He knew it was either Fred or Charles Terry.
No.
He knew it was one of the Terrys. That's what he said, one of the Terrys. And you misheard him.
It's a lie. You're lying.
One of the Terrys, Prince. One of the Terrys. You murdered the wrong man.
The performance is over.
Yes. I'm afraid it is. Terrace. One of the Terrys. It seems incredible.
By no means. I could cite you a score of murders with far less likely causes.
I should have realised that something was seriously wrong with Prince the first time we met him.
Don't berate yourself. True madness can be remarkably difficult to recognise.
I suspect that he simply couldn't face the reality of what he'd done, so he slipped back into an earlier state of mind, when Terrace was still his hero.
In a way, he was acting. He just didn't realise it himself. It was probably the most convincing performance he's ever given.
Now, how did you know we'd find him at the Adelphi?
Well, not merely at the theatre. In William Terrace's old dressing room, he played the role of the disciple so completely, he genuinely believed he was stepping into the dead man's shoes. A lesson to all hero worshippers.
And then we had to shatter the whole charade.
We took away his only justification for the murder. I'm afraid it had to be done.
I suppose so. The senseless loss of one man's life and another's sanity. It's been a sobering experience.
Yes, indeed. I can scarcely recall a case where I was on the wrong track for quite such a long time. You do understand now, I suppose, just why Terrace put his hand in his pocket.
No, actually I don't.
Well, I can't be sure, of course, but I strongly suspect that he recognised Prince, realised his plight, and reached for some coins.
Oh, dear God. He was going to give him money?
At the very moment he was murdered for supposedly withholding it.
Tragic.
Terrace.
Oh, both of them.
You realise, of course, the final, supreme irony.
Another one? Isn't the money thing enough?
I rather think poor Prince would appreciate this one.
What on earth are you talking about?
Well, don't you see it? For all the self-deception, he was quite right about one thing. Thanks to Terrace, Richard Arthur Prince is about to become the most famous actor in England.
In The Star of the Adelphi, Sherlock Holmes was played by Clive Medicine and Dr. John Watson by Andrew Sachs. Prince was played by John Bett, Graves by Philip Anthony, Terrace by Andrew Wincott, Mrs. Terrace by Richenda Carey, Ellaline Hicks by Jasmine Hyde, Seymour Hicks by David Bannerman, and Jessie by Helen Ayres. Other parts were played by members of the cast. The violinist was Leonard Friedman. The Star of the Adelphi was written by Bert Coules from a reference in the short story The Second Stain by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The director was Patrick Rayner.
So, Watson, what do you make of that?
What am I supposed to make of it?
Oh, come on, Doctor, you know my methods. Observe and deduce. Observe and deduce.
Holmes, where did this come from?
Well, there are two answers to that.
Two answers?
At least.
What's the first?
It arrived in the post this morning.
Who sent it?
There was no letter.
No letter?
None.
Is the second answer equally unhelpful?
It's more interesting.
It could hardly be less interesting.
True.
Well?
Well, what?
Holmes, what is the second answer? Where did this thing come from?
I can't be absolutely sure.
Right.
As you know, I never guess.
Yes, I know.
But if my deductions are correct...
Holmes...
It was extracted from the stomach of a dead millionaire.
The Peculiar Persecution of Mr. John Vincent Harden by Bert Coules, with Clive Medicine as Sherlock Holmes and Andrew Sachs as Dr. John Watson, and featuring Jane Asher as Mrs. Harden. The Peculiar Persecution of Mr. John Vincent Harden.
You're not serious.
I'm always serious. Well, almost always.
And how in the world did you deduce that?
Well, first things first, Doctor. The object itself. Describe it.
Well, what's the point? We can both see the thing.
In some ancient cultures, they believe...
These wouldn't be ancient Eastern cultures by any
In
chance?
some ancient Eastern cultures, they believe that to describe a thing is to know it.
Yes, and in some modern Western cultures, they believe that to infuriate a fellow lodger beyond endurance is to risk unreasoning acts of violence.
You, my dear fellow, never.
No, I wouldn't be so sure.
No, I never can get your limits. Actually, it's a perfectly sound idea. I'll give it a try.
Yes, all right, all right. Well, it's made of metal, highly polished.
Chromium plated.
It's cylindrical, about, inch and a half long by half an inch in diameter. Pointed at one end, blunt at the other. The squared off end is, what's the word?
Knurled.
That's it, yes.
Yes. Roughened to afford a grip.
And the pointed end has a series of grooves cut round it.
Bravo, you have it.
Well, hardly. I hate to argue with your ancient Eastern cultures, but I've still no idea what it actually is. Unless... Holmes, is it some sort of bullet?
An intelligent deduction, given where it was found. I had the same notion.
Ah, then I'm right. Killed by a chromium-plated bullet. That has to be unique.
I'm afraid not.
Good Lord, it's not unique?
It's not a bullet. Even a surface as hard as that would bear the marks of having been fired from a gun or rifle. There are a few scratches, but they're the wrong sort at the wrong end, the pointed end.
If it's not a bullet, what the devil is it?
I haven't the faintest notion.
Oh. Well, then, what on earth makes you think it came from the stomach of a dead millionaire?
I did say I couldn't be sure.
I know you better than that. You've a pretty good idea.
Yes, take a look at the wrapping paper.
Oh. Well, it's perfectly ordinary brown parcel paper. Stamps. Address written on a gum paper label. What about it?
Well, there are several indications. Firstly, the paper isn't exactly perfectly ordinary. It's distinctly superior in quality. The same is true of the address label. You noticed, of course, that part of the label's been cut away.
Show me.
There. One long edge is slightly jagged.
Oh, you're right.
The label has a printed return address, which tells us
that, whoever sent you this sends out a good number of parcels?
Exactly so, exactly so. Why else bother to have labels printed? The handwriting's clear and confident, an educated man, and he uses a good quality pen and expensive ink. Now, smell the paper.
Smell it?
Yes.
Well, if you say so.
Well?
What am I supposed to find?
Well, try the inside.
Ah, is that tobacco?
In a way.
In a way? In what way?
Well, try the evidence of the box.
What box?
The box which contained the metal cylinder.
The box you conveniently forgot to mention.
Here.
Thank you. I know. Observe and deduce. It's cardboard, rectangular, with a close-fitting lid. Ah, there was another label glued to the lid, but it's been torn away. Inside, lined with smooth, glossy paper.
Smell it, smell it.
I was going to. Same as the paper, but stronger. No, it's not tobacco. I can't quite place it.
Snuff.
Ah, that's it. Never cared for it.
No, nor I. But it's one of Brother Mycroft's weaknesses. And if I'm right, that's not just snuff. It's very expensive, exclusive snuff.
But, snuff isn't usually kept in boxes like this, surely?
I believe that's a sample box for sending out small quantities to shops or as a gift.
Ah.
Right, so, what do we have? Money, snuff, a mysterious object, an anonymous parcel from an educated man, and this final element in the puzzle which I believe you'll have no problems in recognizing. Yeah. The metal cylinder was wrapped in that.
Oh, this is surgical gauze.
Exactly. Smell it, Doctor?
Somehow I just knew you were going to say that.
Your diagnosis?
Preserving fluid.
Yes.
Someone tried to preserve a polished metal cylinder?
I fancy the smell comes from the gauze's former location, not its use. Does the name John Vincent Harden mean anything to you?
The tobacco millionaire?
The late tobacco millionaire.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's been kept out of the papers. He was found dead in his study a few days ago.
Heart attack?
Bullet.
Wait, he was murdered?
Shot at close range by an assassin who was seen but can't be identified.
A mysterious stranger?
I thought it might appeal to your sense of the melodramatic.
Murder? So there will have been a post-mortem?
Exactly. And the following day, or near enough, this little puzzle arrives to perplex us. Wrapped in gauze, which reeks of the mortician's slab, in a box used for high-quality snuff, hardened snuff, if I'm right. Is it so unreasonable to suggest that this mysterious metal cylinder was found inside the dead man's body?
I suppose not.
But the stomach's something of a leap in the dark, I admit it.
A guess, in other words.
Oh, certainly not.
Yes, but why was there no letter?
I believe it's a test.
A test?
To see if I'm up to the task. If I can deduce who sent it and why, I'll be judged fit to investigate what it all means.
Damnable cheek.
Oh, I don't know. It served to capture my attention.
So who did send it?
At first I thought it might be Harden's widow, but the writing on the label is unmistakably masculine. And I suspect it was the dead man's secretary or personal assistant working on the widow's behalf.
Yes, I suppose that's possible.
Rather more than merely possible, I fancy. Anyway, we'll know soon.
We shall?
I telegraphed the widow soon after I received the parcel. She'll reply straight away.
Well, it'll be a touch embarrassing if you're wrong.
Don't concern yourself. I'm not wrong.
Mr. Holmes, I'm impressed.
Thank you.
Your stories do not exaggerate, Doctor.
No, I've never found it necessary, Mrs. Harden.
No, I can understand that. Mr. Holmes, you are right in every particular. That object was in my husband's stomach. The police appear to be completely baffled.
And I suggest that in this instance, appearances are not deceptive.
Are you baffled, Mr. Holmes?
I am intrigued.
So you will accept the case?
I must warn you that the trail will almost certainly have gone cold. The presence of the British policeman is guaranteed to eradicate most clues, I'm afraid.
Mr. Holmes, I wish to know who killed John and why. If you won't help me, I'm quite certain that no one else can.
In that case, how can I refuse?
This is a magnificent house, Mrs. Harden.
Thank you, Doctor.
Where exactly is your husband's office?
It's one of a suite of offices, custom built in the new wing. The hub of the empire, John liked to call it.
A suite of offices implies a number of administrative staff.
Just two. Michael Phillips, my husband's personal assistant, and Miss Johnston, who does the typing and filing.
Perhaps Mr. Phillips could tell us what happened on the day of your husband's... perhaps he could tell us what happened on the day.
I appreciate your delicacy, Dr. Watson, but it isn't necessary. I can tell you myself. Some of it, at least. Thank you. John rarely received visitors here, but it did happen from time to time. 5 days ago, a man called to see him.
Did you see this man yourself?
No, there's a separate entrance to the offices.
Who did see him, Mrs. Harden?
Miss Johnston was off that day. Mr. Phillips let the man in and escorted him through to John's office.
And then I went back to my own. Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I presume.
And my associate, Dr. Watson.
Mr. Phillips.
Doctor, you passed the test then, Mr. Holmes?
Self-evidently. Was this visitor expected?
He was not. He just turned up at the door.
Did Mr. Harden usually receive people without an appointment?
No, Doctor.
So why was this instance an exception?
When I took in the man's name...
Not his card?
He didn't offer a card. Wasn't really the type.
Well, we'll come to his type in a moment. When you took in the name...
Mr. Harden immediately asked me to show him in.
How did he react to the name?
I've just told you, by asking me to admit the man.
Yes. But how did he react? With interest, with fear, with joy? How?
I could see nothing in particular.
Indeed. Mrs. Harden.
Mr. Holmes?
I've no wish to distress you unduly.
I am not easily distressed, sir.
So I observe. But nonetheless, perhaps you'll be kind enough to return to the main house and wait for us there.
Very well. Gentlemen?
Mrs. Harden.
Now, Mr. Phillips, there are two things you can do for me.
And what might they be?
Firstly, show me your office.
Surely you mean Mr. Harden's office?
Your office. And secondly...
Yes?
You can stop lying and start telling me the truth.
This is my office, or do you believe
Please,
that
stay here in the doorway.
Or do you believe that I'm lying about that too?
One moment, please. Yes. It's very good. Very good, you may enter.
I'm much obliged to you. May I be permitted to know just what I've been lying about?
About Mr. Harden's reaction to his visitor's name. Please don't bother to deny it.
Very well. But it was for the very best of motives.
To protect Mrs. Harden from the truth.
Exactly.
And what is the truth?
It seemed to me, Mr. Holmes, that when I announced the name...
Well, go on, Mr. Phillips. This will not go beyond these walls.
Well, he went as white as a sheet. He was as scared as I've ever seen a man.
Fascinating. I take it that this wasn't exactly in character.
Most definitely not. Mr. Harden was fearless.
Well, not always, it seems. You may show me Harden's office now, but before you do...
What?
Be so good as to tell us this name that drove such terror into the heart of a fearless man.
Mr. Holmes, the visitor's name was Mr. John Smith.
Oh, exactly as I feared. If Scotland Yard had driven a herd of buffaloes through here, there could hardly be more mess. When will they learn?
May we come in?
Yes. Add to the mayhem. Now, Mr. Phillips, did you observe this John Smith's departure?
I could hardly have failed to do so. After I heard the gunshot, I rushed out into the corridor and the man practically knocked me down.
Deliberately so?
I don't think he even saw me. He was rushing to get out.
Did you try to catch him?
No. Well, not at first. I came here, to Mr. Harden's office.
You stopped in the doorway, took in the sight, then turned back and ran after the man Smith.
How on earth do you know that?
I see it. I deduce it. Even Her Majesty's Constabulary hadn't succeeded in removing all the traces. What did you see when you reached the door to the outside?
Nothing. He had disappeared.
And so you returned here?
Yes. Dear God, it was a horrible sight.
Now, where exactly was the body?
Face down beside the desk.
Show me.
Here.
No, show me exactly.
You want me to lie down?
The position may be of vital importance.
If I must.
Yes.
There.
Thank you. And, the gun. I understand it was left behind.
Yes. May I...
Oh, yes, if you wish. Yes. Now, you were saying, the gun?
Underneath Mr. Harden's body. There must have been a struggle and he fell forward.
Was this window open?
Yes. Mr. Harden was fond of fresh air.
That is immensely significant. I take it you described Mr. John Smith to the police.
As best I could. He was a nondescript sort of man. Mid-20s, rather coarsely spoken, but uncommonly well-dressed. Too well, if you ask me.
Oh, can you be more specific?
His suit was expensively cut, but he wore it as though he'd never owned one before.
Describe the gunshot.
Describe it? It was just a shot.
Yes, well, I dare say that you don't routinely encounter gunshots in your line of work.
Of course not.
Now, I appreciate that you don't have many grounds for comparison, but I ask you again, please try to describe the shot.
What is there to say?
Well, for example, this room is panelled in oak. There's not much soft material to absorb sound. The shot would have been reverberant, echoing.
Actually, Doctor, it wasn't. It was rather a dull sort of sound.
And not as loud as you'd expect a firearm to be.
Well, yes, that did occur to me.
Show me the door to the outside.
Not more than a minute had gone by, but he was nowhere to be seen.
You alerted the staff.
The grounds were searched at once.
And the house?
I beg your pardon?
Well, surely it occurred to someone that the man could simply have come back inside the house until the hue and cry was over.
We didn't search the house. And neither did the police.
Well, even if he didn't go back inside, there are dozens of places out here he could have hidden.
So we've had sufficient rain to wash away the most obvious of traces. Oh. Mr. Phillips, you will wait in your office. Watson, let's see what we can rescue from this mess. Close the door. There's a good fellow.
Right.
Mr. Phillips is well within earshot, I fancy.
You suspect him?
Why hasn't it struck you that we only have his word for it, that the mysterious Mr. Smith was here at all?
Well, yes, it has. But why would Phillips want to murder Harden? He had a good job, obviously well paid, lots of responsibility.
We must investigate our millionaire's will. Oh, what do you make of the late Mr. John Vincent Harden?
From his office, you mean? Well, it's neat and tidy, so I dare say he was methodical in his thoughts, and beyond that...
Oh, I think we can go just a little further. He was a man from a humble background who enjoyed the affection of his father. He was ambitious in his youth, somewhat ruthless in later years, but more mellow as he approached retirement. His work took him all over the world, but he didn't play a direct role in the day-to-day running of the business empire. His marriage was content, and his general sense of modesty was marked. He was dissatisfied with his lot in life and yearned for a simpler, more primitive existence.
My dear Holmes.
Is it really possible you don't see all this for yourself?
Oh, please, you know perfectly well that I don't.
Well, there's no great mystery to it. But take a look at the prints and photographs on the walls. The man's whole history is here. Our late millionaire's father ran a cigarette stand on King's Cross Station and was joined by his son when he was old enough to help. The later print shows the new sign, Harden and Son. That speaks of pride and affection. The stand has grown somewhat. Ambition on the part of the new employee.
You said he was ruthless.
Well, he doesn't progress from a cigarette store to a worldwide tobacco empire by being kind and considerate to one's rivals. But he mellowed later. Yes, he was content to step back and let others manage the business. There's nothing here to the tedious day-to-day administration. What else did I say?
His trips around the world. But I saw that one. That's a fine collection of souvenirs on the shelves.
And in the cases. Some of these pieces are very valuable.
The happy marriage.
No man puts a photograph of his wife where only he can see it if the marriage is unhappy. Now, behind that pile of books, you'll just see the edge of a framed certificate, an honorary degree from London University. Only the modest soul hides such a thing away. And only a man who yearns for a simpler life decorates his walls with paintings of rural idylls and improbably happy peasants toiling in the fields. Well?
And Mrs. Harden wonders why I see no need to exaggerate. Bravo, Holmes.
Thank you. But you'd be advised to save your applause until I've actually solved the case. Yes.
Now what are you looking for?
This.
But I don't understand. Why should anyone want to burn a cushion like that?
I'm afraid it was used to muffle the sound of the gunshot.
Oh, how horrible.
Tell me about your husband's trips abroad.
John loved to travel. He said it was to check up on all the foreign offices and factories, but that was just an excuse, I'm sure of it.
Did Mr. Phillips accompany him on these trips?
No, he liked to travel alone.
So you never went with him either? Or any of your children?
We have no children.
Of course you don't. If there were children, Watson, their photographs would undoubtedly have been displayed in the office alongside Mrs. Harden.
Oh, really, Holmes? I'm sorry you were never blessed, Mrs. Harden.
Thank you, Doctor. But some things are simply not meant to be.
You didn't say if you ever accompanied your husband.
Roaming around the globe is not for me, Mr. Holmes. I was always content to wait here for John to return. I'm sorry. Please go on with your questions.
Did Mr. Harden have any trips planned for the near future?
No, nothing at all, as far as I know.
Thank you. Just a little more and I'll be finished. Now, tell me about Mr. John Smith.
I know no one by that name, but surely it must have been false. The police certainly think so.
Well, then I wouldn't presume to disagree. Had Mr. Harden's manner changed at all of late?
In what way?
Well, did he seem at all nervous to you?
Not especially.
Did he take any unusual precautions about the house? Locking doors, that sort of thing?
The servants attended to all that.
And you noticed nothing out of the normal?
Nothing. I'm sorry.
There's no matter. What about the mysterious metal cylinder? Watson, do you have it?
Oh, yes. Here.
Mrs. Harden? Before the police extracted this from the body of your late husband, had you ever seen anything like it in his possession?
Never, Mr. Holmes. I give you my word.
As I see it, there are three possibilities.
And they are?
He was forced at gunpoint to swallow it.
Alternatively?
It was introduced into his body after death. Or he swallowed it himself voluntarily. Why in the world would he do that?
Extend your thinking.
I've been trying.
Why would a man swallow something other than good, wholesome food or drink?
Well, any number of drugs have to be taken orally.
I doubt if small metal cylinders have any great medical efficacy.
I've heard of items being swallowed in order to smuggle them from one country to another. And he travelled all over the world. We know that. If the cylinder is hollow...
I'm afraid it isn't. And besides, there were no trips planned, assuming that the grieving widow's being entirely honest with him.
Surely you don't suspect her?
Well, there are parallel cases in the annals. I mean, did you think she was telling us the whole truth?
Maybe she was concealing something. About Harden's state of mind?
Yes, I wondered about that. An unexpected visitor with an everyday name doesn't normally induce fear, unless the man or the name is feared already.
Is it possible...
Go on.
Well, that sounds ridiculous on the face of it, but is it possible that the metal cylinder and the murder are totally unconnected?
now.
Ah, brilliant observation, Watson.
Mrs. Hudson has been muttering about ruined pork chops.
The wheels of officialdom do not turn to suit Mrs. Hudson's mealtimes, I'm afraid. And they do, eventually, at least.
Did you get it?
I swear to you, Watson, it's easier to get a confession out of a murderer than the post-mortem report out of Scotland Yard. Are you going to eat that potato?
No. Oh,
thank you. Delicious.
You're welcome. Well?
Well, what?
What's it say?
Well, exactly what you'd expect it to say. A single gunshot at close range, death instantaneous. No disease, deformity, or inherited defects. There are two interesting observations.
What are they?
No damage of any kind to the teeth or jaw, and no evidence of bruising or manipulation to the neck.
So the cylinder wasn't forced down his gullet after death?
No, seemingly not.
Perhaps I'm right, then. Perhaps it has nothing to do with the killing.
Well, we've come across extraordinary coincidences before.
True enough.
Yes, but it simply doesn't feel right in this case.
That doesn't sound very scientific.
Yes, you're quite correct, but I'm convinced of it. Well, if I can work out what this is, I'll have the key to the murder. I know it. May I have another potato?
Have you been up all night?
I didn't disturb you, I hope.
Oh, not in the least. Any progress?
Not in the least. Ow.
Oh, let's ring for some breakfast.
Do you think Mrs. Hudson will have forgiven me for wasting yesterday's dinner?
Oh, she probably gave it to the cat. That's what she usually does.
Really? I'd no idea. So that's why it's been getting so fat lately. I deduced a plague of mice below stairs. Yes, ring for breakfast, Doctor, or the poor creature will be in grave danger of exploding.
What are your plans for today?
Back to the house, I think. Or more particularly the garden.
To see just how the mysterious Mr. Smith managed to vanish so completely.
Actually, I'm more interested in why.
Why? Because he just murdered Harden, of course.
But had he? Had he? You were quite right. Any number of places to hide. Even the open path curves around those trees within 50 yards. We're wasting our time here.
At least we're out in this glorious weather.
If John Smith did shoot Harden in cold blood, there's every chance we'll never be able to find out why.
Could he have been a business rival?
Not from Philip's description. And besides, business rivalries are usually resolved by subtler means, if no less vicious. Back to Harden's office, I think. Everything comes down to this cylinder. Now, let's assume that Harden swallowed it voluntarily.
But why on earth would he?
Are you game for an experiment?
Well, if it'll help. And as long as you're not going to ask me to swallow that.
Rest easy, Doctor. Now, let me see. The body was discovered here.
According to Phillips?
Yeah, from the traces on the floor, he was telling the truth. So, if he fell there, he must have been standing here. Do you agree?
Well, it seems logical.
Capital. Take his place, would you?
What, you want me to be Harden?
If you would.
Oh, very well.
And I am the elusive Mr. Smith. Right. The door is closed. We face each other across the room.
Holmes, this is getting us nowhere.
Patience, Doctor. I have a gun. You have this.
Got it.
I'm about to shoot you, and you decide to swallow that. Why?
To prevent anyone else getting it. No, to prevent you getting it. Holmes, suppose he was killed for the cylinder.
Then why did I shoot you and run? Why didn't I try to retrieve it? No attempt was made to mutilate the corpse.
Perhaps you didn't have time.
Now, if I'm bold enough to kill with witnesses to hand, I'm certainly bold enough to risk a few moments more.
Well, then, I swallowed it to prevent someone else getting it. Phillips or Mrs. Harden.
Yes. That makes more sense. But when did you swallow it? When?
Well, obviously not long before I was shot.
Let's change places.
What, you want me to be Smith?
Yes, I'm sure your theatrical skills are up to it. Come on. Now, the cylinder, please.
Yep.
Thank you. Now, I am Harden. You brandish your gun at me. You say...
prepare to die.
Very good, Watson. And I say, no, don't shoot me. At least not until I've swallowed this. No. It simply won't do. It won't do.
It doesn't exactly sound likely. Then nothing to do with that damn cylinder sounds likely.
As usual, you cut straight to the heart of the problem. How high off the ground is this window? Not far. That's excellent.
Why is it?
Because I've no wish to break my neck.
Holmes! Come in.
Sorry to intrude, gentlemen. I thought Mr. Holmes was in here.
He was, Mrs. Harden. He's following up a clue.
Oh, I came to ask if you'll be requiring luncheon.
Oh, that's very good of you. I'll go and ask him by the conventional route. Your client thinks you've taken leave of your senses. She's offered us luncheon.
Holmes. What is that object, Watson? Why do I feel that the answer's staring me in the face?
Oh, take a break from it, old man. Come in and have something to eat.
No, I can't spare the energy.
Well, I hope you don't mind if I do. Perhaps I'll eat on the terrace. This weather's wonderful.
I envy you your simple pleasures.
Don't envy me, join me. Look at the way the trees are silhouetted against the sky, like those old-fashioned cut-out portraits. Oh, for heaven's sake, Holmes.
My dear Watson. My dear Watson.
What? You thought of something?
Never again shall I criticize your glorious habit of thinking in only 2 dimensions.
Only you can be quite so insulting and complimentary all at the same time. Well, come on, what do you mean, 2 dimensions?
I'll show you. Look at this. Solid metal, cylindrical, yes?
Yes. Oh, I've never seen anything like it before.
Well, neither have I, but suppose I hold it up to the light.
You're not trying to tell me it's transparent.
No, of course not. I'm asking you to look at its profile. Think in 2 dimensions. Now, there. You see?
Holmes, I'm sorry.
Squared off at one end, pointed at the other with a series of V-shaped grooves.
Well, it looks like... Oh, dear God. Is it a key?
It's a key. Close the door. Now, if I'm right, and this is a key, what does it unlock?
Why make a key such a peculiar shape?
Well, to disguise its true purpose. The lock is somewhere in this room.
How do you know?
Well, this is Harden's sanctum, his private domain. It has to be in here. A secret lock, opened with a disguised key known to no one but its owner. A triple layer of security. Whatever that lock protects is valuable indeed. But where is it? Where is it?
Holmes, this room may be a private sanctum, but it still has to be cleaned.
Yes, probably by some undermaid or tweenie too awed to ask questions or pry where she's not wanted.
No, she still might have noticed something. It has to be worth a try.
It does, you're right. Find the girl and bring her here.
Come in, Annie. No, don't be scared.
No, sir.
Sit down, Annie.
I couldn't, sir.
Please do sit down, Watson.
Yes, sir. Here.
Thank you, sir.
This is the first time Annie's been in here since it happened.
Well, I'm very grateful to you, Annie.
You are, sir?
You're being very brave. Now, this won't take long, and you might well be helping us to find out who killed your master.
I might, sir.
Yes, indeed. Now, I understand that your duties included cleaning in this room.
Yes, sir.
Did anyone else do so as well?
No, sir. It was my job. The master picked me out special.
Very good. And did he give you any special instructions?
Sir?
Well, did he ask you not to disturb the papers on his desk, anything like that?
Oh, I see. Well, yes, he did ask me that. And I never did, not once.
No, of course you didn't. Now, think carefully, Annie. Was there anything else in this room that he asked you never to touch? Anything else at all?
Well, yes, sir. There was.
You'll have given her quite a standing with the rest of the staff. How I helped Sherlock Holmes. She'll be telling that story for years.
She deserves all the attention she can get.
You really think she's given us the answer?
She was forbidden to go near 2 things. The surface of the desk and this display cabinet. What other explanation could there be?
Well, perhaps these are the rarest souvenirs, the most valuable.
There are far more exotic items in the other cases. Well, now, let's have a look at the door. Well.
What?
It isn't locked. The perfect smokescreen. Now...
Holmes!
Relax, Doctor. I told you. Cheap trinkets for undemanding tourists. Now, let me see. Harden was even cleverer than I thought. Ah.
What is it, a safe?
Yes. With a most individual style of lock. The mysterious cylinder goes in and turns. Et voila.
What's inside?
This. Behold the item that the late Mr. Harden was at such pains to conceal from the world.
A chequebook?
A chequebook. In the name of... Fascinating. In the name of Mr. John Smith.
I simply don't understand this at all.
Well, Mr. Holmes, can you explain this madness?
I doubt very much if madness is involved, Mr. Phillips. This chequebook is a most interesting document.
Yes, the latest in a long series, if the serial numbers are correct.
Are the counterfoils filled in?
With admirable clarity. The baffling Mr. Smith has been writing out his cheques with the precision of a chronometer. One every month, always on the first, always for £20, and always payable to...
Well?
And always payable to Mr. John Smith.
What? This is ludicrous.
On the contrary, it makes perfect sense, as is the fact that the last 3 cheques are not for £20, but for 200.
Mr. Holmes, if this makes sense to you, then for heaven's sake explain it to me.
I should prefer to wait until I have all the facts at my disposal.
And how long will that take, pray?
Not long. Not long at all.
At last, I was beginning to think they'd locked you up in a vault.
They would have liked to. Sir, this is the oldest and most exclusive bank in the city. You're not in the habit of handing out our clients' confidential details to private investigators.
So you drew a blank?
Certainly not. I obtained all the information I needed.
How?
I threatened them with a lestrade, a top-level investigation by Scotland Yard. The prospect was so horrific they practically welcomed me with open arms.
Well done.
The official force does have its uses, after all, it seems.
What did you discover?
Not here. Let's get back home.
Oh, that's better.
Well, don't get too comfortable. We'll be off out again soon. Your leg will stand in.
Oh, certainly.
Good man, good man.
But I'm not stirring from this chair until you've told me what happened at the bank.
What happened was that my theories were proved correct. As I suspected, the majority of the cheques were simply cashed over the counter.
Well, surely that was obvious. Why else would Smith make them out to himself?
Well, quite. But also, as I suspected, the final 3 cheques were paid into another, quite separate account. Almost certainly by another, quite separate man.
Oh, dear God. We're dealing with more than one John Smith?
I believe so. Fortunately...
Oh, please, Holmes, no dramatic pauses.
No, you take all the fun out of this sometimes. Fortunately, I've discovered the first Mr. Smith's address. Aha!
What have you been searching for?
My Bradshaw. Pack your bag, Doctor. We have to go to Wales.
Wales?
Wales! Look at those mountains.
I thought you'd appreciate the view.
And the air. Oh, Baker Street might be 1,000,000 miles away. The rush, the filth, the crime.
Watson, crime is while we're here. Try to keep your mind on the matter in hand. Marchanthroin ad roedd.
What?
The game's afoot. Come on. Try again.
Yes?
Mr. John Smith.
Who's asking?
My name is Sherlock Holmes.
Then you'd better come in.
When did you discover the truth?
4 months ago.
And the blackmail started soon afterwards.
Seems to me you know all the answers already.
Well, I'm damned if I do. Will somebody please explain what all this is about?
Mr. Smith? Very well. It falls to me, then. Perhaps you'll be good enough to correct me if I go wrong. Just as you please. Watson, you'll excuse the fact that some of this is supposition.
Oh, willingly. Just tell me.
Very well. Do you recall my character sketch of the late John Vincent Harden? I particularly mentioned his humble origins and yearning for a simpler life.
You did.
It's my belief that Harden did more than yearn. He created just such a life for himself.
Good God.
Some, 20-odd years ago, our millionaire came here and somehow set himself up as plain poor. John Smith. He married a local girl.
And made her life a misery.
I find that hard to believe. You may have been poor, but did you ever actually go without? I'll wager there was always food on the table and a roof over your head. Well?
We went without him. He was away more than he was here. What sort of a family life is that?
What explanation did he give you? Did he invent some sort of job?
Oh, he always had his reasons. Jobs, travelling. Who travels from these parts? And if they do, they don't come back.
He came back.
Only to leave again.
And you came back too. Holmes, this is the man who called on Harden?
Oh, yes. And this is the man who'd been blackmailing him these last 4 months.
You were blackmailing your own father?
He was no father to me. And no husband to my poor mother.
Which explains the final few checks for such huge amounts. The fact that the names were the same threw me at first, until I realised the truth. The first ones were for Harden himself, his income as Smith, regularly cashed by his other self. The last 3 were blackmail payments to his son.
I wanted what I was due. What we were both due. He had millions.
What happened to your mother?
She died. Last year, she worked herself to death keeping this place together for when her loving husband deigned to come home. And for me, she killed herself to give me some kind of a future. And he spent more in a week than she made in a year.
Did your mother die before you found out the truth?
Oh, yes. She went to her grave still loving him.
A characteristic which you plainly have not inherited. If your mother is dead, why are you still here? Why did you come back?
There's a girl. I'm trying to persuade her to go away with me.
A woman. I should have known it.
Holmes, wait a minute. If it was Smith here who called on Harden that day, then surely it was Smith who killed him.
You take that back! I'm no murderer!
Take your hands off his arm.
Easy. Watson, are you all right?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
I know you're no murderer, Smith.
You do? Then why are you here?
Because all the answers are here. Was that the first time you confronted him face to face? When he was in his other life, I mean?
Yes. The rest was all by letter.
You told him you were coming?
Proper put the wind up him, that did.
But the meeting degenerated into a shouting match.
He was raving.
What exactly did he say to you?
What the rich always say. He offered me money. More money than I'd ever dreamed of. All I had to do was go away and never come back. Do you know what he said? He said we were a mistake. A mistake. I told him there wasn't enough money in the world to buy me.
Was that when he produced the gun?
It was in his desk. And something else, too. I thought it was a bottle or something. He swallowed it whole. What the devil was all that about?
It's not important.
Then he just stared at me. He shook his head, like he didn't know me at all. And he grabbed up a cushion and he
shot himself through the heart.
Dear Lord.
I'm afraid it's all true. Smith made a full confession to the police.
And your husband's bank will confirm the regular payments into his alter ego's account.
I never had the slightest suspicion. Never.
He concealed everything quite brilliantly.
Hence his distress when the boy threatened to expose him.
I can understand Mr. Harden being so distraught, but to kill himself...
Well, I suspect that he could see no way out without grievously injuring you, Mrs. Harden. The knowledge of his other life, and especially the fact that his other wife had given him a son...
You don't need to say anything more, Mr. Holmes. Oh, how could I have been so blind? Why didn't I see how distressed he must have been?
Mrs. Harden, you must consider yourself now. You're in shock. When the full realization hits you, is there someone you can be with? Someone you can trust?
There is, Doctor. Don't worry about me. But when I think about that poor woman, what she must have gone through... I've never known what it's like to go without. How could he do that to her? And to his...
Yes, I'll arrange for your own doctor to see you. It would be best.
Mr. Holmes?
Mrs. Harden.
I should like to see the boy. Would that be permitted, do you think? Perhaps I might do something to ease his pain.
an extraordinary woman.
It's been an extraordinary case all round.
Extraordinary is the word. Extraordinary that Harden was collected enough to swallow that damning key.
But not enough to realise that there'd certainly be a post-mortem. Far from hiding it, he actually managed to ensure that the key would be found.
Why on earth did he use a cushion to deaden the sound of the shot?
I've been wondering about that. Did he want to suggest that Smith had murdered him? Or was he hoping that the sound wouldn't be heard at all and the boy would have the chance to get away?
I'm afraid the answer's gone with him to the grave. Imagine his state of mind at the end. Blackmailed by his own son. Suddenly made to see that he'd ruined 2 families by his selfishness, and both of them his own. Was ever a man haunted by a stranger agony? What will happen to Smith, do you think?
Blackmail is no small offence. But money and position can work wonders. I rather believe that Mrs. Harden will do what she can for him. After that, who knows? Who knows?
In The Peculiar Persecution of Mr. John Vincent Harden, Sherlock Holmes was played by Clive Medicine and Dr. John Watson by Andrew Sachs. Mrs. Harden was played by Jane Asher, Phillips by David Thorpe, Annie by Claire Corbett, and Smith by Peter Darnay. The violinist was Leonard Friedman. The Peculiar Persecution of Mr. John Vincent Harden was written by Bert Coules, from a reference in the short story The Solitary Cyclist by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The director was Patrick Rayner.
I quite agree. The story does lack a definite ending, but the rest of the narrative more than makes up for it.
My dear fellow.
So I'm correct? That is what you were thinking?
Exactly so. It's very impressive.
Oh, Watson, you're the perfect audience. However many times you've seen the trick, you still react as if it were fresh and new. Firstly, I know full well that you've been busy writing up the Baskerville-Stapleton inheritance case.
Ah, yes, the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yes, well, if you prefer. Secondly, your labours are at an end. Your face this afternoon bore all the self-satisfied signs of the successful author about to launch another tale onto the waiting world.
And why not? It's been a lot of work, and I'm pleased with the result.
Except for the denouement.
Well, yes.
The criminal is unmasked, but the hero...
heroes.
1,000 apologies. The heroes have to take someone else's word for it that the villain's dead. That's not the kind of neat and tidy climax your readers expect.
No, quite. But I still don't see
now, you
how
had everything ready to send to the Strand. You were about to seal the envelope, but you stopped. You were uneasy. You glanced up at the print of the good ship Alicia above the fireplace, a remembrance of a case that you'll never publish.
Ah, because it had no ending.
Exactly. Yes, the Alicia disappeared without trace, and I was never able to discover how or why. The connection with your latest opus is obvious.
I suppose so.
But then your eye moved again, back to your notes, specifically to that fulsome letter of thanks from Sir Henry Baskerville. Your doubts were replaced by a warm smile. You were remembering your friendship, the dangers shared, the obstacles overcome, the peril, the excitement, the thrill of the chase.
Yes, I think you've made your point on that.
Yes, and you decided, well, how could you fail to decide, that any story that has all that and a giant dog that glows in the dark is quite strong enough, even without a clear-cut ending. Simple, you see.
Well, if it's so simple, why can't I do it to you?
Oh, it's an excellent question. I think you're just too polite. Or perhaps merely not as bored. Oh, heaven preserve us from quiet days and uneventful nights. Has the entire criminal population gone away on some sort of communal holiday?
Well, there's a thought.
What a pity we can't control reality the same way we can fiction. If this were one of your stories, as soon as I'd finished moaning, the doorbell would ring. I'll never complain about your powers as a writer again.
Always happy to oblige.
Let's see who's come to rescue us.
The Singular Inheritance of Miss Gloria Wilson by Bert Coules, with Clive Medicine as Sherlock Holmes and Andrew Sachs as Dr. John Watson, and featuring Toyah Willcox as Gloria Wilson, Roy Hudd as James Phillimore, and Sean Probert as Inspector Athelney Jones. The Singular Inheritance of Miss Gloria Wilson.
No, don't you trouble yourself, madam. I can find my own way. I am a detective.
Inspector Athelney Jones.
Mr. Holmes. Doctor?
Oh, Inspector. To what do we owe this singular pleasure? Come in. Take the weight off your feet.
Don't mind if I do. Oh, would that be a coffee there, Doctor?
Oh, coming up. No milk and 3 sugars, I think.
Oh, you've a fine memory. I've always said so. Oh, it's a pleasure to sit down, gentlemen. I've had a busy old time of it, I can tell you. Oh, delicious.
Well, Jones, come to ask for my help, have you?
No, not a bit.
Indeed?
I've come, Mr. Holmes, because I knew you would be interested. No other reason. Take a look at this now. Straight from the scene of a crime.
Well.
Exactly.
Fascinating. How long's it been?
25 years, if it's a day. Well, I was on the beat last time I saw one of those.
And I've only ever read a description. Oh, Watson, my dear fellow, you haven't the faintest idea what we're talking about.
I'm afraid not.
I'll explain. It started 32 years ago. A series of robberies, very audacious, very clever. Big houses, all in London, all secure, all well guarded, but still the thief managed to get inside and away again without being seen. Now, here's the funny thing. He only ever took one item.
Only one?
But it was always the most valuable or precious thing in the house. Lady Rothermere's emerald tiara, Count Ellison's Shakespeare First Folio, the Duke of Athlon's Egyptian bowl.
In and out like a phantom he was. No broken locks, no smashed windows, nothing. For near on 7 years.
And then the thefts stopped.
Sudden as they began. 7 years. And in all that time, he only ever left one trace.
Yes, there was one of these at the scene of every crime.
Oh, what is it? A postcard?
Well, not exactly. Here.
Oh, cheap card, plain black with a single letter G. Oh, it's intriguing.
Down at the yard, they called him the Ghost.
Yes, if you'd spent more time looking for him and less in dreaming up a foolish name, you'd have had him.
Now, that's not fair, Mr. Holmes. He baffled the yard's finest brains, he did.
Yes, well, that's not saying much.
Holmes!
You see, you can read my mind.
When it comes to some subjects, yes, I can.
I'm sorry, gentlemen.
Oh, nothing. Jones, where did you get this?
Yes, well, that's what I came to tell you. That was lying in the middle of the floor of a locked room at Lord Torrington's townhouse in Hampstead. He'd been burgled, you see. A priceless diamond, just the one, and not a sign of the robber. Gentlemen, the ghost has returned, and I am on his trail.
East, the windswept west, the unknown north, the snowy stormlands of the south. Music, marvels, monsters, all of them here, all of them real, all of them for you.
Yes, gentlemen? My name is Sherlock Holmes. Please inform Lord Torrington that I'm here to examine the scene of the crime.
I cannot do that, sir.
Why the devil not?
His lordship's specific instructions, sir. Only the official detective force has his permission to investigate this crime. Good day to you.
Damn the man.
Holmes.
Well, he's a fool. If he wants his precious diamond back, he needs me, not some bumbling imbecile from the land of song.
You don't care a fig about the diamond or about Lord Torrington. You just want to crack at this ghost character.
Your newly developed mind-reading skills are beginning to get annoying.
Oh, for pity's sake, stop and think for a moment. Now that he's come out of retirement, this ghost's not going to stop at one burglary, is he? You'll get your chance.
Another one.
The Secretary for War, no less. A set of antique dueling pistols.
When?
The theft was discovered under 2 hours ago.
Get your hat, Watson.
Mr. Holmes. Mr. Holmes.
What?
Sir Frank doesn't want anyone else involved.
What?
Oh, dear.
No press, no publicity, no private detectives. Some people still place their trust in the official forces of law and order, you see. Yes, well, if you'll excuse me...
Yes, go.
Go! Gentlemen.
Oh. Sorry, Holmes.
There's something wrong. Something doesn't fit.
Doesn't fit?
2 robberies, 2 noble clients, 2 declarations that I mustn't be allowed to investigate. I don't believe it.
My dear chap, you can't always expect to be called in.
Yes, very well. Then we must adopt another approach.
What do you mean?
Well, if I can't be directly involved, then obviously I must solve these crimes from the sidelines.
And how on earth do you propose to do that? This is the one.
Details of the original robberies. It seems that at least one section of Scotland Yard has some claim to efficiency. Who'd have thought they kept so many records? Right. Let's have a look at our friend, the Ghost.
Oh, good to be back in the fresh air. Oh, well, what did you learn?
Very little, I'm afraid. The popular version of the story is more or less correct. No sign of entry or exit, no forcing of locks, virtually no witnesses. Oh, I did learn one new fact.
What was that?
He was seen once. On his final job, a servant saw a vague shape going into a room.
That's not much of a description.
It's as good as they were ever going to get. When they took her statement, the woman was terrified.
Terrified? Why, did he attack her?
Nothing so commonplace. As I said, she saw him go into a room. It was a small room with locked windows and just the one door. The woman had the presence of mind to shut the door and bolt it.
I don't think I'm going to like what's coming next.
Quite sure you're not. When the master of the house unlocked the door, the room was empty.
Shoo.
Yes. Whoever he is, the man's a genius. I'm looking forward to meeting him.
Before your very eyes, he will defy the laws of Mother Nature. He floats in the air. He vanishes away like smoke. He melts through solid walls. Ladies and gentlemen, young ladies and young gentlemen, the amazing Georgiano!
There's been another one. Greenwich, retired bishop, valuable Bible. Mr. Holmes...
Am I excluded yet again?
I don't know. Haven't been there yet, just got word. If you like, I can try to use my influence, bring you in on the case, like...
In need of a helping hand, are you, Jones?
Oh, Holmes, really?
No, not a bit of it. I just thought you might care to, I don't know, have a quick look. I know how much you like this sort of thing.
Well, I suppose it might be interesting.
Oh, you'll come.
Greenwich, is it?
Yeah, that's right, that's it. But we have to go somewhere else first.
Why do we?
Because this time he made a mistake. He was seen. And that's not all.
Miss Marshall, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Sherlock Holmes. I'm going to find out who did this to you, but I need your help. Do you understand?
I understand.
Can you tell us what happened?
I'm not sure. I think he hit me.
Who hit you?
Don't know. Came from nowhere.
You were cleaning in your master's library, is that right?
Yeah. And he just appeared.
Well, through the window, in the doorway, what?
I don't know. I didn't see.
All right. Take it easy now. Rest back. That's the way. Keep this short, gentlemen.
Can you describe him, Miss Marshall?
short, thin, dressed in black.
What about his face?
He had no face.
What?
He had no face. No face!
The woman was hysterical.
No, she wasn't. She was mistaken. A black mask, possibly, or some sort of makeup to hide his features. I hope you've got a man guarding the scene of the crime.
Of course. There's been no disturbance.
Then we have a chance. Lead on. Your constable did a good job, Jones. No one's been into this room since the maid was removed.
He's a promising lad. Well...
What have you found?
Yes.
Practically nothing. The Bible was evidently in that locked cabinet. It's still locked.
What about signs of his break-in?
Well, I can read where the encounter took place. The maid was by the hearth. She collapsed across the fender and in all likelihood broke her jaw on the iron bars when she fell. And that's the sum total of what the room tells me. For all I can see, your ghost might just as well have walked through the walls.
You ought to eat something, you know.
I can't spare the energy. I need it for thought.
Now, Mrs. Hudson will not be amused.
Mrs. Hudson isn't trying to solve an impossible crime.
Well, no, I don't suppose she is.
Jones, won't you join us? I have the doctor's word for it that the devil kidneys are particularly fine today.
No, thank you, Mr. Holmes. Well, perhaps later.
Whatever's wrong?
I take it you haven't looked at the papers this morning?
Not yet, no. Something of interest, is there?
You could say that. Damned scandal mongers. You take a look at that now.
Phantom thief has Scotland Yard baffled. Oh dear, I am sorry.
Well, it's the same in every one.
But how did they get the story?
Someone must have talked a servant, I expect.
Probably for money. Oh, you're right, Watson. It's delicious.
All there, every detail. The previous two thefts as well. Just as he was getting careless, just when he might have thought the net was tightening. Now he knows we're no nearer to catching him than we were 25 years ago.
You could be right. On the other hand, it might give him the confidence to commit another crime very quickly. Watson, I'm beginning to suspect that you've engineered this whole case for maximum dramatic effect.
Well, no such luck, I'm afraid. Come in.
Mr. Holmes?
At your service?
Forgive me, when the street door was open, it seemed easiest to come up unannounced.
Well, no apologies are necessary, Mr.
Phillimore. James Phillimore.
As my friend the doctor here will tell you, we've seen far more unorthodox entrances onto our humble stage.
Dr. John Watson, pleasure to meet you, sir.
Mr. Phillimore. And this commanding figure belongs to Detective Inspector Athelney Jones of Scotland Yard.
Well, forgive me, Inspector, but I should much prefer to talk to Mr. Holmes in confidence.
Oh, well, yes, of course. I must be about my business anyway. I plan to talk to the maid again, see if there's anything she's forgotten.
Take it gently with her, Jones.
I shall, Doctor. Never fear. Gentlemen?
Jones.
Now, Mr. James Phillimore, pray take a seat and tell us how we can be of service.
Thank you, sir. You've seen the papers, then? This is a terrible business, gentlemen, a terrible business. How is the woman, do you know? I inquired at the hospital on my way here, but they wouldn't tell me.
Her injuries are quite serious, but she'll recover.
Oh, I'm pleased to hear it. Very pleased. And this outrage is merely the latest of several.
So it seems.
We live in lawless times. Lawless times.
And what is your own problem, Mr. Phillimore?
Oh, yes, of course. It's linked, I believe, to that unfortunate maidservant. Gentlemen, last night I, too, was robbed. And by the same thief. By the man they call the Ghost. I maintain a modest establishment, just a small house and one servant, my housekeeper, Mrs. Cotterill. Since I retired, I've lived quietly and contentedly, too, until last night.
What was stolen from you, Mr. Phillimore?
My one great treasure, Dr. Watson. A tiara studded with emeralds, presented to my dear mother on the occasion of her wedding and passed down to me. A thing of great beauty and no less emotional value.
And what makes you believe that this ghost is to blame?
The circumstances match in every particular. No lock was disturbed, no doorpost, and this was left in the centre of the room.
Indeed.
Ah, yes. The golden G on a black background, you see.
That's his calling card, all right.
Why did you ask Inspector Jones to leave?
According to the newspapers, the official forces have made absolutely no progress towards identifying this villain. I prefer to put my trust in you, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Phillimore. No sign of any force being applied?
No.
How many people know the combination, Mr. Phillimore?
Only myself, Doctor. And as you can see, Mr. Holmes, nothing else in the safe has been disturbed.
Yes, and no traces on the doors or windows. It certainly bears all the hallmarks of our elusive friend.
No friend to me, sir.
My apologies, Mr. Phillimore. The loss of such a valued article must have affected you deeply.
I'm afraid it has,
Yes, I'll examine the rest of the room now. Perhaps you'd be good enough to wait elsewhere.
Oh, rest assured, Mr. Phillimore. If anyone can catch this thief, that man is Sherlock Holmes.
I certainly hope so, Doctor. Another biscuit?
Thank you, no.
Very well. Aha! Have you made any progress, Mr. Holmes?
I believe I have, yes.
Splendid. May I ask what you've discovered?
If you've read my friend's literary efforts, Mr. Phillimore, you'll know that I have the regrettable habit of secrecy. All should be revealed in the fullness of time. Watson, we ought to be going.
You were a little short with him.
Was I? Oh, no matter.
Are you going to tell me what you found?
Our man's made another slip, perhaps two.
Oh, he really is getting sloppy then.
Look at this.
What is it? Mud?
The sole of our phantom burglar's right shoe, and not just mud. Use my lens.
Oh, something embedded. I can't tell what.
Sawdust. Mud impregnated with sawdust. I found it on the windowsill inside the study.
I thought the window was locked.
It was.
That's his method, then. Somehow he can lock the windows from the outside after he's left. Genius.
Very. Especially when you consider the dust.
What dust?
Our client's housekeeper is not exactly efficient. The windowsill was covered in a layer of dust at least 3 days old. It was completely undisturbed.
Undisturbed? But surely that means...
It means that we should concentrate on our one material clue, mud and sawdust. Now, what does that suggest to you?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Johnston Circus Giganticus presents once again the incredible Georgiano, the masked master of mystery, music maestro, if you please.
This is the only circus currently in the capital. The mud outside's an exact match for the pellet I found at Phillimore's.
This Georgiano's our thief.
A committee from the audience has locked the amazing Georgiano into the reinforced steel trunk. The locks have been sealed with wax. The air is running out. And now, the curtain cabinet of the unknown will be put into place.
The curtain cabinet of the unknown, dear Lord. Holmes, what's the greatest burglar of all time doing in a run-down touring circus?
Yes, it is curious, isn't it?
The curtains are in place! Maestro! Stop the clock! Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Georgiano! And the committee from the audience will attest the locks are still secure and sealed.
Oh, well done. Yes, I suppose that could be our man.
Not exactly.
What do you mean?
Look.
And now, the amazing Georgiano's greatest surprise of all. Georgiano, remove your mask.
Good God above. It's a woman.
Sit yourselves down, gents. Excuse me while I get out the working clothes.
Well, we'll wait outside.
That repulsive, am I?
Of course not. I simply
Relax,
meant...
love. You sit there, and I'll be behind here. How's that? All decent and proper enough for you?
Perfectly. Now, Miss Georgiano...
That's Wilson to you, love. Gloria Wilson.
Yeah, Miss Wilson, does the name The Ghost mean anything to you?
Another act, is he?
Something of the sort.
Well, I hope he's in a better gaff than this flea pit. Oh, that's better. What about him, this ghost? What's he do?
Much the same as you, Miss Wilson.
Though with one or two interesting variations. Where were you last night between the hours of midnight and 4 o'clock?
Last night? Who are you?
Please answer the question.
That's pretty much exactly where you are now, me old cock. You're sitting on my bed. And before you ask, I was asleep. And on my own.
So, no one can corroborate your story?
Are you going to tell me what this is all about?
Not yet. How long have you been in the circus?
All my life.
You're an extremely skillful performer.
Yeah, I am.
Worthy of better surroundings.
I'm not arguing.
Then why are you here?
I never got the breaks. That's all. Not that it's any business of yours.
Crime is always my business.
Crime? The only crime round here is the ticket prices and the pay. Look, I'll ask you again. Just who are you?
My name is Sherlock Holmes. This is my associate, Dr. Watson.
Chuck me over that dressing gown.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Thanks. Sherlock Holmes. Struth. Well, sorry, love, but you've got it wrong this time.
What do you mean?
I mean, you've got it wrong. You think I'm some kind of big-time crook? What am I supposed to have done? Knocked someone off? Blackmail? Arson?
Robbery.
Robbery? And just what is it that I've nicked?
A pair of dueling pistols, an antique Bible...
And various other valuables. Miss Wilson?
And I thought you was good. Look around you, gents. If I had money, do you seriously think I'd still be in this godforsaken dump? Do you really think I'm that much of a fool?
Suppose I told you that I had proof.
What sort of proof?
We must be going. Thank you for your time, Miss Wilson.
What sort of proof?
Holmes, this is ridiculous. Why are we still lurking here at this time of night?
You're perfectly free to go, Doctor.
Oh, now you tell me.
Please do so quietly. I don't want to alert our quarry.
Miss Wilson, you mean?
Of course.
But surely she's too young. I doubt if she was even born when the robbery started.
Possibly not.
Besides, what she said made sense. If she's a master criminal, why is she still here?
There are other reasons than monetary gain to commit burglary.
There are? Look, it's a lantern. She's coming out.
We've unnerved her, exactly as I intended.
Shut your gob, you great toothless lump. That's better. Now shift over. I told you, save it for the show. Thank God.
There was no need to be concerned. It's all still there.
Evening, gents. There you go.
Thank you,
Miss Wilson.
I'd say good health, but I don't suppose I'm going to be in for too much of that, am I?
That rather depends on you.
What do you mean?
First things first. You admit to the recent robberies?
No, love, I just happened to find all that stuff.
Levity won't help your case, Miss Wilson.
No, I don't suppose it will. All right, let's do it the proper way. Yes, Mr. Holmes, I'll hold my hands up.
Very sensible of you.
Look, how's that maid, or whatever she was?
Recovering.
Thank God. It was an accident, she did say.
At the moment, she can barely remember what happened.
She saw me and screamed. Then she stepped back and tripped over the fireplace. You've got to believe me.
I do.
Thanks. I suppose you want to hear the rest.
Not here. We ought to repair to somewhere more suitable.
My name's Gloria Wilson. We're a circus family, always have been. Right back to me great, God knows how many greats-grandfather. I've never known anything else, not really.
Not until recently, at any rate.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that. Do you know many circus folk, Mr. Holmes?
I've encountered a few.
Then you'll know what keeps us going. Pride. It's a great calling. Historic, noble, well, leastways it used to be. You've seen the dump 'em with now.
So you decided to explore an alternative profession, is that it?
You really have got away with words, haven't you? Yes, Doctor. I decided to explore an alternative profession. And a right pig's ear I made of it, obviously.
I wouldn't say so.
No? You caught me, didn't you? Mind you, that's more than the coppers managed, eh, love?
You keep a civil tongue in your head.
Anyway, it all started going wrong. First off, where was the glory? I thought I'd be all over the papers right from the start.
I believe you have the good inspector here to thank.
You know about that?
You persuaded the victims to keep quiet, Inspector. Why?
It was part of his plan to exclude me. He was also after the glory, until he realised he had no chance on his own. Well, Jones, you should talk to your colleagues rather more. I like to stay out of the limelight. All your efforts were a waste of time.
Oh, whoever did it, I cursed them. Getting in the papers was the only reason I started doing it. You understand that bit, Mr. Holmes? I know you do.
The applause was dying. There were no more crowds, no more admirers.
Yeah. My family used to be top of the tree. Played before royalty. My mum and her dad before her. Brilliant he was. The best. When you've lived through that, then a tatty old tent in Battersea. Oh, that's not easy.
But to turn to crime, there must have been a better way.
But it wasn't really crime, was it?
Not really crime, good.
Well, it wasn't. I was going to give all the things back. Leave 'em somewhere where they'd be found. I thought that'd make the story even better.
And so it would.
And no one got hurt. At least that was the idea. Well, she's all right, that woman.
No thanks to you.
Yes, she will be perfectly all right.
Thanks. Well, that's it, really. That's why I did it. I wanted to be top of the bill.
Even if nobody knew it was you?
I'd have known. That would have been enough.
Miss Wilson.
Mr. Holmes?
Before the worthy inspector places you formally under arrest, why don't you tell us the whole story?
I don't know what you mean.
No more do I.
Miss Wilson, you're obviously not old enough to have committed the original robberies. Why did you decide to copy the ghost? And how did you know so much about a criminal from so long ago?
Mr. Holmes, I don't need to answer it, do I? I think you know.
There's one piece of information I still lack.
What's that, then?
Your family's been in the circus for generations.
Yeah, like I said.
And have they always done the same act?
See, I was right. You do know.
And performers' secrets are passed down from generation to generation. The original ghost. Your father?
Him? No, he was useless. Couldn't escape from a paper bag. It was my granddad.
And what happened to him?
He died when I was 8. Left me a sealed letter with the whole story. I was the only one he trusted. All these years, I've been the only one that knew.
So, Mr. Holmes, can I charge her now?
Yes, Jones, you can charge her.
Thank you, cabby. Holmes, why are we here?
Has it really not occurred to you that things have been far too simple?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean that any criminal as clever as the magical Miss Wilson doesn't suddenly start leaving obvious clues at the scene of her crime.
But she was getting sloppy, we saw that. The injured maid.
It was an accident, pure and simple. It doesn't compare with the rest.
The rest? Ah, I know about the mud sample.
Ring the bell. There's a good fellow.
Mm-hmm. But, what other clues did she leave? Oh, do you mean the undisturbed dust? What did that tell you?
Oh, Watson, not all signposts point in the same direction.
What on earth is that supposed to mean?
Ah, come in, gentlemen. I've been expecting you. You were successful then?
Completely.
It was Gloria.
Yes, you were quite right.
You know Miss Wilson, Mr. Phillimore?
Oh, yes, Doctor.
Just as you knew her grandfather.
Yes. Yes, I knew him. I knew him when he was just a struggling magician, and I knew him when he was a household name. And I'm sorry to say that I knew him when the fame was no longer enough, and he turned to crime. Here.
Thank you.
So, Miss Wilson was mistaken. She wasn't the only one who knew the truth.
But like her, I've kept the secret to myself all these years. When I saw the reports in the papers, I suspected at once that she was behind the robberies.
And so you faked a burglary, left a clue which pointed to her and no one else, and then called me in.
Yes, that's exactly what I did.
Yes, your clue was ingenious, unlike the way you left the dust on the windowsill completely untouched. I know thief's that good, however ghostly.
Oh, did I do that? Well, I probably wasn't thinking as clearly as I should have been. I was so anxious to stop Gloria before the compulsion really took hold, the way it did with her grandfather.
Yes, but unless I'm wrong, he came to regret his career as a criminal.
He realized that he had perverted what should have been honourable skills. The magical arts go back into antiquity. I couldn't see another member of the family disgrace that heritage. And, of course, there was that business with the maidservant.
Which distressed you far more than the supposed theft of your own property. Another clue you didn't intend to leave, I fancy.
No, but I was so upset that Gloria could have resorted to violence. And on a woman, too.
No, she didn't. It was an accident completely out of her control.
Really? Ah, I'm so glad.
And you needn't have been concerned about her giving in to the compulsion. She was planning to return everything.
She was?
Yeah, she's no hardened criminal. She was after glory, fame. Every haul was calculated for its publicity value, nothing more. All she wanted was some acclaim.
Oh, dear Lord. If I hadn't interfered, she might have just slipped back into obscurity. What have I done?
Mr. Phillimore, if you were that worried, why didn't you simply go to the circus and confront her with what you knew? Surely you could have made her see sense.
No, I couldn't do that, Dr. Watson. I haven't seen Gloria Wilson for nearly a quarter of a century.
But why on earth not? Oh, good heavens. Of course.
Open up! In the name of the law!
For heaven's sake, Jones, you'll have the door in.
Never mind that. Sanders, stay there. You watch the road.
Very good, sir.
Now, Mr. Holmes, I think you know why I'm here.
You'd better come in.
Mr. Holmes, who on earth was it?
It was Detective Inspector Jones and Miss Gloria Wilson.
No.
Bring her in here, Jones.
Come on, you.
All right, Father, keep your hands to...
Hello, my dear.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Granddad!
I knew it. Well, who's the clever one now, then, huh? Who's the reasoner now? Suddenly occurred to me. What put you on to her so quick? Something had happened I didn't know about.
Hardly an unusual state of affairs.
Never mind those clever remarks. So, when you left, what did I do? I followed you, that's what. And I brought her with me. Look at that. The proof positive.
Of what exactly?
Now, come on. No more games. I'll bet my pension to a penny. That is the ghost. The real ghost. Well, Phillimore, what do you say?
Well, I might inquire if you have any evidence, Inspector.
Evidence, is it? Well, I dare say when I've turned this house upside down, I'll have all the evidence I need, and if I don't, well, a few days in a cell, and you'll soon be singing a different song. You take my word for it.
There's no need for threats, sir. I was the ghost.
I knew it. Didn't I tell you I knew it?
Oh, yes, you told me.
I thought you were dead. Why didn't you let me know? Why did you do it?
I was ashamed. So ashamed of what I'd done.
But you confessed. The letter.
I never should have written it. It's tortured me ever since.
Tortured you? Why?
Because I didn't know how you'd reacted, what you thought of me.
You could have just asked me.
Oh, my dear. Suppose you hadn't been able to forgive me. I couldn't bear the thought of knowing that.
Of course I'll forgive you.
So I stayed away. I stayed dead.
Oh.
Yes, well, this is all very fine and touching, but I have my duty to do. Bring them out, Saunders.
Inspector, come on, you two. That's the way.
No need to shove. You all right, Grandad?
Yes, thank you, my dear.
Are you proposing that we should walk to the yard, Jones?
Of course not. The local station's just round the corner.
Yes, well, I think it's going to rain.
I believe you're correct, Doctor. All right, then. Me at the front, Saunders behind.
Hang on, copper.
What do you want?
A bit of common decency, that's all. Grandad,
My dear?
you should bring an umbrella.
Now, come on.
For pity's sake, Jones, he's an old man.
Do you really think so, Gloria?
Yeah, I do.
Here comes the rain.
Would you have any objection to my fetching my umbrella, Inspector?
It's not 5 minutes walk.
Bloody hell, copper.
It is only just inside the front door.
Oh, go on then, but be quick.
Thank you. Gloria, my dear, would you give me a hand?
No, I think I better wait out here.
But surely...
Go on, Grandad, for you catch your death.
You're a good girl, Gloria.
Thanks.
Won't be a moment, Inspector.
Just get on with it.
Would you excuse me, Mr. Holmes?
With pleasure, Mr. Phillimore.
Thank you.
Now get the move on you.
Oh, for heaven's sake, relax, Jones. Think what they'll say at the yard. 2 ghosts in one day.
Oh, no, that's true. That's very true. Who's that? Why did he shut the door? Hey! Hey!
Jones! Jones! It isn't locked.
Phillimore! Phillimore!
Inspector?
Yes! Sorry, lad. What's your report?
The back door's bolted on the inside. And anyway, there's no way out through the garden.
And?
Well, I've been through the whole house, sir. Cupboards, loft, everything. He's not here. He's not nowhere.
You knew, didn't you? You knew this was going to happen.
Sorry?
I wasn't talking to you. Mr. Holmes, you knew.
Did I?
You know, I've been thinking.
Indeed?
Yes. She did actually achieve what she wanted, didn't she? The story did get into the papers.
Eventually, yes, it did.
Then why didn't she carry on? More baffling crimes? More publicity for the mysterious ghost?
No, she said it herself. It was all going wrong. The business with the maid unnerved her, and I suspect that second-hand fame wasn't quite as satisfying as she'd hoped it would be.
Yes, it sounds reasonable. Lucky for you, wasn't it?
What was?
That the news got out. If it hadn't, Phillimore would never have known what she was up to.
Quite true.
Is that what you were hoping for when you gave the papers the story?
Mind reading again?
Oh, not a bit of it. Simple deduction. There were too many details. If someone else had talked to the reporters, they would only have known the broad outlines, but the papers had the lot. Who else could have given it to them?
Faultless logic. Bravo.
Thank you.
Actually, I just wanted to find out if there'd been any unreported cases. The rest was, well, as you say, lucky.
What will happen to her, do you suppose?
Oh, first offence, genuine repentance, no real harm done. Well, I believe she'll be treated lightly.
Oh, good, good.
Publicity won't hurt her career. Her legitimate career, I mean.
Excellent. Was Jones right?
About what?
Did you know that Phillimore would disappear?
Well, it was his speciality, if you recall.
And, do you know how he did it?
I know this. No one will ever find him.
So you don't know?
He's changed his name at least once. He'll undoubtedly do it again. Perhaps his appearance, too, this time.
Or you do know, and you're not going to tell me?
I think we can rest assured that Mr. James Phillimore will never again be seen in this world. What were you saying?
Doesn't matter.
In The Singular Inheritance of Miss Gloria Wilson, Sherlock Holmes was played by Clive Medicine and Dr. John Watson by Andrew Sachs. Gloria Wilson was played by Toyah Wilcox, James Phillimore by Roy Hudd, Inspector Athelney Jones by Sean Probert, and the Ringmaster by Sean Baker. Other parts were played by members of the cast. The violinist was Leonard Friedman. The Singular Inheritance of Miss Gloria Wilson was written by Bert Coules from a reference in the short story The Problem of Thor Bridge by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The director was Patrick Rayner.